for us all. Angela Rayner has denied this, of course. We'll see what happens. But Labour infighting is intensifying once again as support for Sir Keir Starmer appears to be collapsing. So we'll talk about that. Also, how do you feel about digital ID? Nationwide protests taking place today over the contentious issue. Campaigners saying it's becoming mandatory in all but name as new systems roll out. We'll be live at the protests in Edinburgh and in London. What do you think about us negotiating with the Taliban so we can deport Afghan migrants? The Home Secretary is reportedly considering the move to deport failed asylum seekers. Would this persuade you Labour can control our borders? And how important are school uniforms? Some MPs are calling, wait for it, for tracksuits and trainers to be allowed in classrooms. But could relaxing these uniform rules undermine discipline and standards in schools? Plus, Britain continues its slow descent into a crime-ridden fortress nation. Greggs is now scrapping self-service by putting food behind the counter. As shoplifting spirals, will more high street stores be forced to lock everything down? So that's all coming up in the next few hours. Don't forget to send your views, post your comments, gbnews.com/yoursay. Scan the QR code right now on your screens. But before we get started, let's get you up to date with the latest news headlines. Here's Sophia Wensler.
Christy, thank you and good afternoon. Your headlines at 3:02. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading to Pakistan for discussions on ways to end the war in Iran. Iran's foreign minister is already in the capital Islamabad, but it's reported he won't be holding any direct talks with the US. Iran is blaming America's continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz and what they say are excessive demands. Meanwhile, 4 people have been killed in Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon. It follows the deaths of 6 people in the area yesterday. Israel's military says it's targeting positions used by Hezbollah. The attacks come despite a 3-week ceasefire extension announced by President Trump on Thursday. Argentina says it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the Falkland Islands after reports the US could review its position on the territory. A leaked Pentagon email details options for President Donald Trump's administration to punish NATO allies for refusing to support its war on Iran. Downing Street is adamant the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not in question. 2 young children died in a house fire in Wolverhampton last night. West Midlands Police says they were rescued from the burning building but pronounced dead at the scene. 2 other children and a woman were already out of the house before emergency services arrived. Police have cordoned off the area while investigations there continue. A man has been charged with the murder of a 27-year-old woman in Westminster 2 years ago after police extradited him from the United Arab Emirates. 18-year-old Enzo Bettamio was flown over from Dubai to the UK on Friday. He appeared in court today, charged with the fatal stabbing of the woman known as Angela in April 2024 near her home in Bayswater. He's been remanded into custody and is due at the Old Bailey on Tuesday. The family of Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent victims, are holding a memorial service in Washington, D.C. to mark 1 year since her death. It comes 2 days before King Charles arrives in the US for a 4-day state visit. Miss Giuffre's brother and sister-in-law have strongly urged the king to meet with them, as well as other survivors, but royal sources say a meeting isn't possible while police investigations are ongoing. The number of dog attacks causing injuries has risen by more than 80% since 2020. Figures obtained by the Daily Mirror reveal there were nearly 29,400 incidents last year. The increase is despite the ban on XL bullies, which came into force in February 2024. 3 people have been killed in dog attacks just this month, including a 3-month-old girl. The Princess of Wales has laid a wreath at the cenotaph to mark Anzac Day. The annual ceremony commemorates the 1915 Gallipoli landing of Australian and New Zealand troops in the First World War. Princess Catherine played a central role in representing the royal family at the service at Westminster Abbey, laying a wreath on behalf of King Charles. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Christo.
Now, there's growing concern from Falklands veterans and islanders after leaked emails from the US government suggested Britain's claim to the territory could be reviewed. Donald Trump is said to be considering the move in response to the UK not directly joining the Iran conflict. Argentina also says it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the islands. But the Prime Minister has insisted British sovereignty isn't going to change. Well, joining us now is Associate Editor at The Daily Sceptic, Laurie Wastel. Thanks for taking the time to join us, Laurie. So, firstly, what's your reaction to the latest development on this, that Argentina want to reopen these negotiations?
Yes, well, it does strike me as a little bit of sort of populist opportunism on Javier Milei, the Argentinian president's part. I mean, we do obviously see that a lot from Argentina. It's almost a sort of ritual for Argentinian leaders to say that, to sort of demonstrate their credentials to their base. I mean, how seriously should we take that sort of leaked email from the US State Department? I mean, in the first place, the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not the Americans to review. I mean, it's a ridiculous notion. It is our sovereignty. It's our islands that we had to fight for, of course, in 1982, and which we are going to maintain. And so it's a very high-handed way for them to treat their supposed, closest ally. But again, it's only a leaked document. I think, of course, the Americans have really had to eat a lot of humble pie over the Iran situation in the past couple of months. And so, yes, they're looking for sort of ways to lash out again. But I don't think we have to take that too seriously, I would imagine.
But couldn't we have avoided this? I mean, I get what you're saying about it's not America's territory, it's ours. But we weren't there for America initially when they asked to use our bases. And knowing what Trump is like, Starmer knowing what Trump is like, couldn't he have predicted that actually we need America? We need America for the Falklands. We need America for our own defence. And so alienating them was a really silly idea.
I mean, I agree with you that America are our close allies, and it's unwise to alienate them overall. But I mean, in terms of the Iran misadventure, it does very much seem like it has been that. And overall, I think certainly in terms of his popularity here and within his own party and the British electorate more broadly, the decision actually to keep well out of Iran is one of the few things that Starmer has actually done well in recent months. That said, the question of whether he can now sort of turn this question over the Falkland Islands into some kind of way to patriotically rebound and sort of shore up support, as of course Mrs. Thatcher did back in 1982, I think is dubious, because of course, yes, now we have had this retort from Downing Street. Yes, of course, the Falkland Islands are British sovereign territory and so on. But is he really, in the same mold as the Iron Lady on this? We know how much Starmer actually loves giving away our sovereign territory with the Chagos Islands, for instance. And so I think people won't be taking it too seriously when he tries to posture in this way. And so I think, indeed, we could be worried. We've had Javier Milei and the Argentinian government talking about them as a colonial possession, which is a completely ridiculous notion if you properly understand the history of the Falkland Islands. But we know that Keir Starmer will go weak at the knees for any suggestion like that, even if it's from, for instance, the International Criminal Court, which has a Chinese communist on it, but that, put forward that ruling about the Chagos Islands, which he ridiculously listened to. So, might he buckle in the same way with the Falklands? I think many voters will be concerned about that.
Well, later I'm going to be talking about whether he's more of a lawyer than a leader, but we'll deal with that a bit later on. Now, yesterday, here on GB News, we spoke to the Falklands veteran Simon Weston. Let's hear what he had to say about this.
Foremost, I don't know what it's got to do with Mr. Trump. Because it's none of his business what the sovereignty of the islands is. The people there had a referendum, and it was like 99% of the people there voted to remain under British sovereignty. They don't deserve this. They've done nothing wrong. Yeah. They've made a great success since the war 44 years ago. They've made a great legacy out of the conflict. They're doing incredibly well. Leave them alone to get on with their lives peacefully.
So, firstly, what's your reaction to that? And secondly, the problem we have with this is we have, as a result of Labour, as a result of the Conservatives, no military really to speak of. So if Argentina did start flexing their muscles, without America, we're really up the creek.
It is certainly true that the military situation of our army has very much deteriorated in the past 40 years since since the Falklands conflict in 1982, and so yes, that would be a concern. I think that said, Javier Milei is no General Gautieri, and that was of course a disgraceful invasion by that military junta that we saw back then. I suspect Milei is less reckless than that, but no, certainly it's true that we should be concerned. But I think hearing a veteran like that, Simon Weston, there talk, of course, himself and his fellow soldiers really putting life and limb on the line, of course, for that campaign, and then having to hear this kind of high-handed talk from Trump is quite disgraceful. But at the same time, I mean, the man in number 10, Keir Starmer, has spent half of his career prosecuting or allowing to be prosecuted, at least people like veterans like that, whether it's in Northern Ireland or otherwise. And I think the idea that he's going to be again, as I say, channeling that kind of patriotic spirit that we would need, I think it is hard to believe.
Yeah, well, he did have the plastic bunting out for St George's Day, so, he dusted that off. Plastic bunting, I mean, God, is that as good as it got? OK, how important now is the King's visit to the US? Is it something that is incredibly important, or is this the worst possible time?
Oh, well, I suppose in many ways both, but it will be certainly diplomatically difficult, and one is concerned. I mean, we know that before he was king, of course, Charles did like to make various kinds of political statements. I mean, even as king, in fact, he famously attended one of the COP climate conferences and sort of, really laid out a political stall there, which I feel was pretty unwise. Will he try to do that in this much more fraught diplomatic situation? One would hope not. But yes, there's certainly all kinds of tripwires possible. We know that he's not particularly well disposed to the war, and certainly not really to Trump necessarily. At the same time, Trump was so glad to have his state visit here. He is a bit of a Anglophile. He loves his Scottish mother, of course, and that heritage. So there's going to be a lot riding on it, and I think we just can hope it gets done without too many blips.
All right, Associate Editor at The Daily Skeptic, Laura Wostall, thanks for taking the time to talk to us right here on GB News. All right, digital ID. It's like the most irritating boomerang policy which keeps returning, isn't it? Well, the Together Declaration is holding protests today, right now. London, Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast calling for the government to scrap the policy. Well, GB News Scotland reporter Tony Maguire joins us now from the digital ID protest in Edinburgh. Hi there, what's the latest you can tell us, Tony?
Good afternoon. So, the crowd has slowly gathered here in the grass in front of the Scottish Parliament building, and the speakers have started to address the kind of growing crowd here. One in particular stood out. He is a long-term club owner and a pub owner. In fact, just a real monolith of the Scottish hospitality sector, Donald MacLeod MBE. He was here not because it affects his business per se too much, but the very principle of privacy, and also really highly critical of the way that the Scottish government, the UK government has held on to our data. Well, he spoke to me a little earlier on just to kind of share his thoughts about why he's here today to oppose digital ID.
And Tony, what are the people actually saying there? What are the kinds of conversations that you're having with some of those protesters? What are their worries?
Well, one of them's actually just come over to me just now. Tobias Bailey, you're with Citizen Go, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell me, why are you here today to protest digital ID?
So I think on the basis, you'd look at digital ID and it would seem a good thing because, it's another digitalization to make things more efficient. I would see it actually as a move that incorporates an agenda behind it. And I'd also see it as authoritarian, because essentially it's going to lead to everything being traceable. And we already know how far government's gone with that.
And obviously one of the big complaints from other people, you know, I was just talking there like Donald MacLeod, it's how the government holds on to our data, how safe they keep it.
Well, indeed. Also, one of our main concerns as Citizen Go is whether data would be breached in the future. I mean, you look at the increase of foreign government across the world at the moment and all the different contretemps they're having over various issues. I mean, how long until this data is weaponized as well?
Well, that's it, isn't it? The question over how safe is our data, how can it be used against us, very much key themes here today towards the speakers. But, you know, nothing, I'm sure, like the pictures Isabel is seeing down in Trafalgar Square on this For Capital protest from the Together Declaration.
Well, Tony Maguire live in Edinburgh. That's the most perfect segue, actually, because let's now speak to Isabel live here in London. Isabel, what can you tell us?
Yeah, good afternoon. The protest in Trafalgar Square fully underway now. Currently a performance happening behind me, but just moments ago there was a huge demonstration in the crowd, a banner 10 metres by 10 metres that clearly states scrap digital ID. So that is the clear message from Together today. That's what protesters here are shouting out. They're just so against this. No one here wants this, and many speaking out about their fears, their concerns for what this could mean, including Adam Brooks, who's here now to have a chat with me. Adam, how did you firstly get involved with Together?
Well, Alan Miller rang me, the Together organiser, back in 2020 or 2021, and I joined him as a founding member to push back against vaccine passports. I didn't want people to have to show a QR code to go into my pub or nightclubs and basically turn us into a checkpoint or QR society. I've got 3 kids. I do not want to turn into a China or an authoritarian state where they can switch you off at a turn of a button, and you can do that with digital ID. People that try and play this down do not understand. If your digital ID is linked to your bank, you know, your benefits, your pension, they can turn you off. Someone like me that regularly speaks out against the government, especially Keir Starmer, if they don't like what I say, they could flick a switch and turn me off, take me from society. They don't need to put me in prison anymore. And we've seen that in China. During COVID, people couldn't use the trains if they hadn't played ball. They couldn't, you know, claim their benefits if they'd spoke out against the narrative. And that is what digital ID is about. But look, I'm also here. Our data recently has been leaked to China, our health data. About 500,000 health records have gone to China on the dark web. Can you imagine if all of our data was in one place with the government controlling it? I mean, do the viewers really trust this government to hold our data secure? No, it's impossible. So, you know, it's a hacker's dream. So look, I'm here today to back Together Declaration. I was one of the founding members. They do great work, and if you're online, please check out the website. Please join as a member, because we speak to MPs. We go onto the media, and our message is just growing, you know, far and wide. And MPs know they've got no mandate for digital ID. It was not in Labour's manifesto. Keir Starmer didn't put it in the manifesto because they knew that the left, the right, and the centre were united against this. Millions put a petition up against it, signed a petition. So it's not a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. It's, you know, general consensus. We do not want to be controlled. We do not want our data out there in one portal that the government can control. So look, we say no to digital ID.
Thank you so much for coming on. And this event is ongoing. There's going to be speakers throughout the afternoon carrying on up until 5 o'clock. So if you're near, you can come down to Trafalgar Square here to see what's going on. But many here here, definitely saying no to digital ID, shouting it out, holding up banners, signs. The message is clear.
All right, Isabel Fekulak, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Join us live from Trafalgar Square. Well, the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, Darren Jones, said that digital ID will become the front door to how you access public services and will cut costs to you, the taxpayer. He added that data relating to the digital ID will always be stored in line with standard government practice, just like how your passport or national insurance data is stored today. All right, time for the Great British Giveaway now. It's one final week to see how you could win a brand new 4-berth camper van, £25,000 worth of tax-free cash, all in time for the summer holidays. It's the biggest prize of the year here on GB News so far. Here are all the details you need for a chance to make it yours.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize of the year so far. Just in time for summer, you could be driving away with your very own 4-berth camper van. This Benny Van 122 could give you the perfect getaway this year, as it comes complete with all of the features you'd expect of a vehicle worth over £67,000. A built-in kitchen and bathroom, dedicated living areas, and panoramic opening rear doors. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. We'll also give you an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close on the 1st of May, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Christo in for Nana here on GB News. Coming up, well, we'll be discussing that big Falklands story of the day, plus asking whether you still have confidence in Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood. The government reportedly exploring talks with the Taliban over deporting failed Afghan asylum seekers. Can't wait to hear what you think of that one next, here on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again
to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I have a feeling that an awful lot of people are going to be quite shocked, as I was, reading the first chapter, where you describe so vividly that moment you were playing when your arm, your body, basically gave up on you, and you say in the book where you suddenly realised you were unemployed. You could not play the cello anymore.
The thing is, it was just after 10 minutes of a concert started, a 2-hour concert, and I just suddenly lost the power in my bowing arm. So it was like a humiliating and frightening moment. I just couldn't, and the audience there, and, you know, I felt I couldn't hold the bow, and it's just so embarrassing and just horrible. And I'd never known anything like it. I didn't know what was wrong. I knew it was bad. You know your body. And, OK, I called my wife in the interval of the concert, and you know, I'd been working really hard, and she said, oh, you've probably been doing over-practice. But I knew it was more than that. And the next day I had tests on my arm, and things weren't working, and there were no reactions to things. So I had an MRI scan on my neck, and they said there's a nerve that's trapped and is being pressed on by a herniated disc. So I could have had an operation. One surgeon out of 3 agreed to do it, but they said it was very, very risky, and it might not work. So it's not an attractive option.
But that's how you start the book.
Yes.
And I mean, hearing you talk about it now, I do wonder, is that a moment that continues to haunt you? as a musician?
I think I've blanked that out of my mind. That actually,
Yeah.
so, I mean, now you mention it.
Sorry, but it's there in the book.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was just a horrible year.
GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, it's Christo here on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. Thanks for your company. Coming up, do you still have confidence in the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood? But now, time for the great British debate. Has Sir Keir Starmer permanently damaged the special relationship between the UK and the US? The Prime Minister has been forced to respond to claims on Britain's sovereignty over the Falkland Islands. He says it isn't going to change. This comes after Sir Keir Starmer's lack of support for the war in Iran was called into question by the President of the United States. Also, in the last few hours, it's been revealed Argentina have announced it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the islands. So, for the great British debate this hour, we're asking, has Sir Keir Starmer permanently damaged the special relationship between the UK and the US? Well, joining me is political commentator Aman Bogle and leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell. So, let's start with you, Ed, actually, because I think that Keir Starmer played it appallingly. He didn't need to get involved in the Iran war. He didn't need to put troops on the ground. He didn't need to send our aircraft or anything else. If he had just said to the President, you can use our air bases, which he actually ended up doing anyway, he could have kept in President Trump's good graces while still steering clear enough of the war.
I'm not sure I completely agree with that. I mean, I actually think that Starmer, in the end, has come out looking pretty good from the Iran war. I do agree at the beginning he could have been more decisive. I think we should have seen a more decisive face, and I'd like to see more decisive on everything, but particularly in dealing with Donald Trump and with the USA. I think in terms of where we started on the special relationship, I don't think Starmer has damaged it particularly. I think Trump is probably damaging it quicker and at a faster pace than anything anybody could be doing in the UK. And his comments about us in relation to different times our troops or our aircraft carriers being toys or whatever it would be, or even, and I'm not a defender of Starmer, but he's no Churchill, I think those are damaging, but I don't think the relationship is damaged.
But isn't that a contradiction? How can you say that the relationship isn't damaged whilst referencing the President of the United States taking the mickey out of our aircraft carriers and saying he's no Winston Churchill? That is precisely demonstrative of the fact that our relationship is damaged.
I think because he's probably doing that to everybody in the world at the moment, and he never stops. I mean, he's consistently tanking out all these different issues and comments and criticisms of everybody, and I don't think it's restricted to us. And I think if we then look at some of his posts, I mean, the post he brought out depicting himself as Jesus healing somebody in that, but with guns and things in the background that was posted. I mean, he
thought he looked like he was a doctor. Adam, let me come to you. So is it unfair to say that this relationship has been ruined?
Look, let's be honest here. Keir Starmer and his merry team, be it David Lammy, be it Yvette Cooper, all these people have spent their political lives bad-mouthing not just President Trump, but the United States itself. Right? We had a situation when President Trump came to the UK on a state visit in his first term, and you had David Lammy literally saying he's going to chain himself to the gates of Number 10 to protest the visit of the then first term of President Trump.
The problem is with David Lammy is he'd go to 10 Regent Street. He wouldn't go to 10 Downing Street.
Well, that indeed. But the thing again is, look, first of all, Starmer, his cabinet, these are people that are absolutely Europhiles at heart. They can't stand that Washington, D.C., that the United States is finally taking its rightful place on the world stage as the leader of the free world, be it challenging the Islamic terror regime in Tehran, and also coming back home here to Britain. Starmer and his regime, they are beholden to the sectarian Islamic vote bank that they're kowtowing to throughout this the conflict with Iran. And that's why he has been so hesitant to back President Trump and Israel in taking the war.
That is a fair comment, isn't it? Because, he held an iftar a couple of days after the conflict started and was at great pains to Starmer to say, look, it's nothing to do with us.
I'll go back to where I was before. I don't think, subsequently, what's come out of the Iran war and where Starmer's been on it has actually been bad for us. I do agree at the beginning. I think there are a lot of questions about what we should have been doing in those first few days and everything else, and I don't think he acted decisively enough, and I don't think we looked terribly good then. I am not against where we are now.
Hold on a second. Bad for us. It's disastrous for Britain. Our geopolitical standing in the world has been hugely damaged. We haven't been able to defend our own bases in Cyprus. The Defence Secretary does not know how many ships the Royal Navy has. And let's be honest, our allies and friends in the Middle East, be it the UAE, be it the Saudis, they don't trust us anymore. The UAE has been out on campaigning that the Starmer's Britain is no longer really a friend. Where is Britain on the geopolitical stage? It has been hugely damaging. And let's not forget, before the 2024 election, Christo, Starmer went into the election saying that he would proscribe the IRGC in Britain if he became Prime Minister. He spent the last 2 years dragging his feet because he's kowtowing to bring back some of the Islamic vote bank into the Labour Party. He's now again said last night that, you know what, he'll try and proscribe the IRGC in the next Parliament. For goodness sake, he's the Prime Minister. He should be standing on the right side of history.
Can I just come in and actually agree on one of the things you were pointing out there? I think on one of the issues is we have got to be ramping up our defence forces. We are unable to take the action that we would like to take in many instances at the moment. Even the piece of news that's coming in today about the Falklands, oh my goodness, what would happen if we had to go and take action in the Falklands now at a couple of days' notice? Would we be able to get a ship ready? Would we be able to have it manned? Would we be able to get there in a few weeks to get it done? And I think the answer at the moment is probably no. So we have got to be getting a grip on that absolutely now. This is one thing where Trump has been correct in pointing out to members of NATO, and particularly Britain, we are not ready for war. And if we're not ready for war, we're not ready to defend ourselves.
So you agree that respect on the geopolitical stage is earned. And let's be honest here, President Trump has taken the fight to the Islamic regime in Tehran for one very simple reason, and that is to defend not just the only free democracy between the borders of Britain and the border of India, that is Israel, in the Middle East. Let's be honest, there is no other democracy between our borders and the borders of India. And where are we in all of that? Traditionally, we would have been there right in the centre of it, right in the middle of it, defending the values that we hold dear.
Well, actually, I think Boris Johnson, and dare I say it, actually wrote a brilliant piece about this a few weeks ago, saying, look, we're involved, whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
We are involved. Listen, this will rumble on, this debate, and we might touch on it again later. But for now, we're going to talk, a little bit later, actually, we're going to talk about whether Starmer's past as a lawyer has helped or hindered him. But next, we will have another great British debate. We'll be asking whether you still have confidence in the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. That's coming up next. First, though, let's get you up to date with your latest news headlines. Here's Sophia Wensler.
Christo, thank you. Your headlines at 3:33. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading to Pakistan for negotiations on how to end the war in Iran. Iran's foreign minister is already in the capital, Islamabad, but it's reported he won't be holding any direct talks with the US. Downing Street insists the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not in question. It comes as Argentina is calling for negotiations over the territory to reopen after a leaked report revealed the US could review its position. 2 young children have died in a house fire in Wolverhampton last night. West Midlands Police says they rescued from the burning building but pronounced dead at the scene. The family of Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent victims, are holding a memorial service in Washington, D.C. to mark 1 year since her death. It comes ahead of King Charles' state visit next week. They're calling on him to meet with them and other survivors. Those are your headlines for now. I'll have more news for you at the top of the hour.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunny spells, continuing to be largely dry over the next 24 hours through the rest of the weekend, though generally a bit more cloud around, some weather fronts near the northwest of the UK giving a few splashes of rain, but generally high pressure holding on as we move through the rest of the weekend. Some showers across western parts of Scotland, thicker cloud across northern and eastern Scotland into the evening may just produce 1 or 2 spots of rain. But as we head overnight, it'll be largely dry, some low cloud and fog affecting eastern parts of the UK once more, perhaps not quite as thick as last night. Under the cloud, temperatures falling to around 4 or 5 degrees in places, but any clear spells in the countryside, a touch of frost is possible. So it'll be a bit of a mixed start to Sunday morning. The risk of some showery rain across parts of the Highlands and the islands, but further south and east across Scotland, a dry start with some sunny spells, though some fog patches and low cloud in places too. A mixture of cloud and a few splashes of rain for Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England as well. A grey start across some eastern parts of England, foggy in places too. Elsewhere, some hazy spells of sunshine. And as we go through the day, I think overall the picture won't change too much. Low cloud across the east should burn back to the North Sea coast. And then there'll be hazy spells of sunshine for the vast majority. So it might not be quite as blue the sky out there on a Sunday compared to today. And further splashes of rain pushing eastwards across northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures overall still well above average for the time of year for most of us, up to around 21 or 22 Celsius. Just still cool where we see some low cloud lingering. We'll also see those showers continuing to move through as we move into the evening on Sunday. And then high pressure looks like it generally stays in charge. Perhaps 1 or 2 showers around on Monday, but temperatures staying well above average.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Afternoon, it's Christo here on GB News on TV and on digital radio in for Nana. And coming up, by the way, in the next hour, I'm going to be talking about whether you think Keir Starmer is more of a lawyer than a leader and whether his past as a lawyer has actually affected your opinion of him. But let's get on with another great British debate. Is there anyone left that still has confidence in the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood? She reportedly wants to negotiate with, wait for it, the Taliban over deporting failed Afghan asylum seekers back to Afghanistan. With thousands unable to return, costs mounting, ministers say all options are now being monitored. So, should we be negotiating with the Taliban? And ultimately, do we still have confidence in Shabana Mahmood? Well, we still have political commentator Aman Bogle, leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell as well. Aman, I'll start with you, because a lot of people will listen to the words negotiate with the Taliban and think that that is barking mad. What do you think?
Well, first of all, this is something that Reform first announced a few days ago, that they, in government, would deport people back to Afghanistan. So it begs the question, is Shabana Mahmood really sort of trying to posture, running scared of reform at the ballot box, trying to preempt some of their policies?
But a good idea is a good idea.
It's a good idea.
If it's a good idea, does it matter that it was Reform's idea first?
The only problem is, Christo, that Shabana Mahmood simply cannot be trusted to enact and deliver it. Let's break this down a bit. She has a long history of sectarian politics, which point to the contrary, that she would want to do anything like this in terms of securing our borders and deporting those here illegally. She started off her political career, of course, back in 2015, infamously on the island of Lesbos in Greece, welcoming refugees in that whole influx from Syria and the Middle East.
She wouldn't be the first politician that's changed her mind, maybe, because she has spoken tough since. I've had high hopes
Well,
for
that's
her.
the thing. She speaks a tough gig, but she just simply cannot be trusted, because if you come down a little bit further, the last election, she was on the doorsteps campaigning not as a Labour candidate, not as someone hopeful of becoming the British Home Secretary. She was campaigning as self-proclaiming herself as a proud daughter of Kashmir. Sectarian politics on British doorsteps in the middle of Birmingham Ladywood. Since then, what has she delivered in terms of actually deporting illegal immigrants?
All right, but the idea itself, talking to the Taliban themselves, let's put that aside. Let's assume, and I know it's a big, if, but let's assume that it's in good faith and that she does plan on doing this. Would you still be in favour then?
Well, there's a far better way of doing this, Christo, and that is that illegal Afghans who are in Britain need to be deported to Pakistan. Of course, the Labour government has a very solid, friendly relationship with the government of Pakistan. And of course, the Pakistanis themselves are deporting 6,000 illegal Afghans from Pakistan a day.
All right, OK, so it's not a great idea, and we can't trust Shabana Mahmood anyway, even if it was a good idea. I mean, that's pretty grim, isn't it?
I think the overall issue of immigration, asylum seekers and the whole thing together has been out of control for a long time. I mean, she didn't exactly create the problem. She's just taken on a very bad problem where she's only done some elastoplast to try and put it right. We could be coming in, and I think I'd like to see from her in the future a much more comprehensive, more ambitious programme that hits the issue at lots and lots of different levels. And I have to say, when we're talking about this, and then obviously come back to small boats to some extent, I always think it's utterly laughable when we think about the small boats issue, when we look at the fact we have 10,000 border guards, but we only have about 140 assigned to boats that are patrolling our 4,000 miles of coastline. Is how on earth could we control these things, whether we wanted to do it or not? If we want to deport people to some extent, or we want to even process their applications, we've got to know where they are and what's happening. We have such a system that has so many creaking parts of it. The whole thing needs reviewing and putting right.
The problem there are so many problems, and you're right, there are so many elements to this story that it is absolutely ridiculous. And in fairness to previous Home Secretaries, I think it was Priti Patel, I think, I forget her name now, who went to reform.
Suella
Braverman. They both tried, I think, to get the Navy in the Channel, and they refused. The Navy actually said, no, we're not doing it, and that is reform's policy as well. So even when there has been good ideas, they have been scuppered, because, of course, that's what Australia did. They put the Navy in. But actually, I think I might be the only one of us here that thinks this is quite a good idea. Germany have negotiated with the Taliban. There are many, many horrible regimes around the world that sometimes you have to talk to. And, OK, Germany haven't deported loads of people by talking to the Taliban, but they've deported some, and some is better than none. So don't we just have to hold our breath sometimes?
But, Christo, we're already paying the Pakistanis £132 million a year in foreign aid. Surely we should be getting something bang for the buck for the British taxpayer.
Why would the Pakistanis say, well, yeah, OK, we'll take some Afghans?
Well, because they're already deporting literally 6,000 a day. If the Labour government has such a strong, friendly relationship with the Pakistanis, what is stopping them from deporting these people to the Pakistani border in Rawalpindi?
OK.
And I mean, on the deportation bit, I mean, I'm worried about how we even get to that point to some extent, because we're processing asylum applications. Once we get through the processing of them, about 40% are being accepted, 60% are being rejected. They then all go, or many of them then go to court, and we get another 30 or 35% that get accepted. But in addition, those that don't get through, what happens? They just walk out, and then they walk around on the street. So we sort of expect them to trot off and leave.
But we jest a little of the absurdity of that. But obviously, in the last 48 hours, we have seen that actually there was the horrific story, and we won't go into the full details now because it's too traumatic. But the Egyptian migrant convicted of murder, who had his asylum application turned down, was still here, and he and two of his friends, I suppose you could call them, raping that poor girl, and the conviction that they faced. Now, they had their applications turned down.
And the big question here, Christo, is how many on the Parliamentary Labour Party and on the Labour backbenches will be lawyers, will be immigration lawyers, will be human rights lawyers, who will be betting on the side of these people who are here illegally, who are criminals, who are not here in the national interest of Britain, and would be aghast at Shabana Mahmood trying to deport these people, least of all Angela Rayner, who's called Shabana Mahmood's idea un-British and has asked her to be sacked. And she, of course, is the Prime Minister in waiting for Labour.
I mean, I have to say, it is a lot to do with who the people behind Shabana Mahmood, whatever good idea she has.
Well, it is. I have to say, I don't particularly like criticism of lawyers trying to do their job, although we
They're
have
not doing their job.
1 second.
No, hold on a second. They're not doing their job.
1 second.
They're not doing their job. What about the human rights of the British people?
All right, no talking over each other. If Nana was here, she would separate you physically.
And I was just about to say, but we have had stories come out over the last few weeks where they weren't, and certain lawyers and that's have been doing things that are actually, unfair, trying to get people through systems in ways they shouldn't have been doing, setting them up with false papers and all that sort of thing. That I would never condone. I do condone lawyers doing the right job. Then the system has to change to make sure the right job is done. And at the moment, Denmark has brought in a much more comprehensive immigration system, and I think we should be moving in something much more comprehensive like that. So as you come in, you're accepted only for a year or two. If your country gets safe again, then your asylum opportunity has gone.
And of course, Denmark, still members of the ECHR as well, and still managed to do that. So that's an interesting example. Okay, we've got to leave it there. Aman and Ed, thank you very much indeed. OK, coming up, rising shoplifting rates turning us into Fortress Britain. Do we need to learn to live with shoplifting? That's depressing. Let me know your thoughts on that one. But first, if you're in search of some holiday sun, well, we've got it here. But if you want some abroad, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
A big talking point across southern Europe at the moment is just how warm it is for the time of year across parts of Portugal, Spain and France. We do have some showers affecting the Canary Islands, but it's the showers with that heat in Iberia that are turning heavy and thundery, starting to ease as we go through tomorrow and into next week. Dry for many parts around the central Med, with the showery rain affecting Greece at the moment, clearing away towards the east, and there's more fine, dry, warm weather to come for many as we go into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News,
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Thanks for your company. It's Christo in for Nanette here on GB News. Later, you will get Christo's conclusion. Yes, that took us at least 3 seconds to think up, on Starmer being more of a lawyer than a leader. On a serious note, there are a couple of stories today about victims of grooming gangs and veterans that will just make your hair curl. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But for now, let's return to the digital ID protest taking place across all 4 UK capitals today. Campaigners are pushing back against these government digital ID plans. Well, GB News reporter Isabel Fekulak joins us from Trafalgar Square right now. Isabel, what can you tell us now?
Well, good afternoon. I've been here all day chatting to so many people here who are just so concerned about what digital ID could mean, what it could start. They're afraid for the future, they're afraid for their children, and so many have come out today, thousands, to the protest here in hope for an aim to scrap digital ID. The message is clear across all 4 of these protests. That is the aim. And I'm joined now by the co-founder of Together, Alan Miller. You came on earlier and talked about what the insane organisation has gone into today, but what is the aim? What are you hoping to be the outcome of this protest?
We keep making the point that the public must have their voices heard. None of this was ever in any manifesto, it was never agreed, and up and down the country we're getting people to make sure that whoever's standing for local elections know that they're voting on this issue. Scrap digital ID, as well as keeping juries and saying no to net zero, but scrapping digital ID is essential. So we're making that a big part in the run-up to the 7th of May elections, but beyond as well. And to speak about it, we also think this is going to be an albatross for Keir Starmer. This is his policy. He's going to go down. He's going to go down with it. We suggest no one else in Labour pursues it, or any other party. But also we're going to carry on, because we know that with the Constitution, the right to free speech, even though it's a foundational right, every generation has to fight to defend it and uphold it. And we've got particular technocrats right now that think that we're rubbish, we need to be surveyed and controlled around free speech and a whole range of other issues, and we're saying we're going to keep fighting that fight to say scrap digital ID. We must have the right to exist without digitally verifying, and togetherdeclaration.org would invite all your viewers and listeners to get involved in that with us.
I mean, what a turnout today. What do you make of it? So many people have approached you saying thank you for what you're doing. What do you make of the people in attendance today?
Yeah, it's fantastic. The British public are great, contrary to what they say at Labour Party political conference, where they're smearing millions of decent, everyday people. And we've got, you know, you're hearing at the moment from Belfast, outside the town hall centre, outside Scottish Parliament and outside Welsh Parliament. We've got people all around the country campaigning, leafleting, calls to action, protests and rallies. I'm really excited that people have turned out. It's a beautiful day, but also this is ongoing. It's not going away, and neither we are. And Keir Starmer and 10 Downing Street should hear that. He will go the same way as Morgan McSweeney, which, by the way, was the person who came up with a digital brick card.
I'm so sorry. I do have to interrupt you there. Thank you, guys. We'll be here again throughout the days, but this is what we're seeing now in Trafalgar Square.
OK, Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, said digital ID will become part of your front door to access public services, and all data will be stored in line with government practice. OK, coming up, I'll be asking whether Starmer's past as a lawyer has helped or hindered him. But now, here on GB News, it's the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunny spells, continuing to be largely dry over the next 24 hours through the rest of the weekend. Though generally a bit more cloud around, some weather fronts near the northwest of the UK giving a few splashes of rain, but generally high pressure holding on as we move through the rest of the weekend. Some showers across western parts of Scotland, thicker cloud across northern and eastern Scotland into the evening may just produce 1 or 2 spots of rain. But as we head overnight, it'll be largely dry, some low cloud and fog affecting eastern parts of the UK once more, perhaps not quite as thick as last night. Under the cloud, temperatures falling to around 4 or 5 degrees in places, but any clear spells in the countryside, a touch of frost is possible. So it will be a bit of a mixed start to Sunday morning. The risk of some showery rain across parts of the Highlands and the islands, but further south and east across Scotland, a dry start with some sunny spells, though some fog patches and low cloud in places too. A mixture of cloud and a few splashes of rain for Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England as well. A grey start across some eastern parts of England, foggy in places too. Elsewhere, some hazy spells of sunshine. And as we go through the day, I think overall the picture won't change too much. Low cloud across the east should burn back to the North Sea coast. And then there'll be hazy spells of sunshine for the vast majority. So it might not be quite as blue the sky out there on a Sunday compared to today, and further splashes of rain pushing eastwards across northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures overall still well above average for the time of year for most of us, up to around 21 or 22 Celsius. Just still cool where we see some low cloud lingering. We'll also see those showers continuing to move through as we move into the evening on Sunday. And then high pressure looks like it generally stays in charge. Perhaps 1 or 2 showers around on Monday, but temperatures staying well above average.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize of the year so far. You could be driving away with your very own 4-berth camper van. This Benny Van 122 could give you the perfect getaway this year. We'll also give you an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close on the 1st of May, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Afternoon, thanks for your company. It's Christo here on GB News, filling in for Nana Akua. I'll check my phone. I haven't heard from her, so I think I might be doing an okay job for the next 2 hours. We'll be taking on some of the big stories of the day and, of course, getting some opinion, mine and my panels and yours. GBnews.com, your say. We've got two familiar faces for the next couple of hours. Political commentator Aman Bogle and leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell. Now, Falkland Islands veterans are hitting back at US President Donald Trump after this leaked email from the Pentagon suggests plans to review Britain's claim to the territory as punishment for failing to join the Iran war. Argentina is also saying it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the islands. Also, we're keeping an eye on whether the Prime Minister is on the brink. Cabinet ministers are reportedly plotting his exit. Allies of Angela Rayner are demanding Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is sacked as the price of Angela Rayner's return. Angela Rayner, of course, has denied this. But Labour infighting is intensifying. Once again, support for Keir Starmer appears to be collapsing. We'll be talking about how important school uniforms are. Some MPs are calling for, God help us, tracksuits and trainers to be allowed in classrooms. Could relaxing uniform rules undermine discipline and standards in schools? And Britain is continuing its slow descent into a crime-ridden fortress nation. Greggs is scrapping self-service. Yes, no more choosing your own sausage roll by putting food behind the counter. As shoplifting spirals and more high street stores are being forced to lock everything down. Is this leading to Fortress Britain? That's all coming up in the next hour. Don't forget to send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com /your say. You can scan the QR code on the screen as well. Let's take a look at what you are saying. Firstly, thank you for all of your really kind comments about me being in the chair today. Really appreciate them. I'm not going to be so self-indulgent as to read out all of them, but you're very, very kind in some of them. Some of you, Michael says Starmer is a destructive Dalek. It's an insult to Daleks there. A few others as well here. Lizzie, is this Labour government taking a lesson from China in how to keep the population downtrodden and in poverty? Good luck to those protesters. Thank you very much indeed for that. Dave says, digital idea, Starmer and Blair's Gestapo. We've never been a papers, please society. And on the subject, we were also talking about whether you trust Shabana Mahmood, whether you have faith in her. Dune San says the simple answer is no. She can claim she's being tough on migration in the certain knowledge that any tough measures she proposes will be killed off by backbench MPs. That way she can look good to the media and voters without achieving anything. OK, more of your comments coming up, but now, as the time is just a few minutes past 4 o'clock, let's get you up to date with the latest news headlines. Here's Sophia Wensler.
Christo, thank you and good afternoon. Your top stories this hour. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading to Pakistan for discussions on ways to end the war in Iran. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the Iranian delegation has now flown out of Pakistan. That's according to two Pakistani government sources. Iran is blaming America's continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz and what they say are excessive demands. Meanwhile, 4 people have been killed in Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon. It follows the deaths of 6 people in the area yesterday. Israel's military says it's targeting positions used by Hezbollah. The attacks come despite a 3-week ceasefire extension announced by President Trump on Thursday. Argentina says it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the Falkland Islands after reports the US could review its position on the territory. A leaked Pentagon email details options for President Donald Trump's administration to punish NATO allies for refusing to support its war on Iran. Downing Street is adamant the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not in question. 2 young children died in a house fire in Wolverhampton last night. West Midlands Police say they were rescued from the burning building but were pronounced dead at the scene. 2 other children and a woman were already out of the house before emergency services arrived. Police have cordoned off the area while investigations continue there. A man has been charged with the murder of a 27-year-old woman in Westminster 2 years ago after police extradited him from the United Arab Emirates. 18-year-old Enzo Bettemio was flown over from Dubai to the UK on Friday. He appeared in court today, charged with the fatal stabbing of the woman known as Angela in April 2024 near her home in Bayswater. He's been remanded into custody and is due at the Old Bailey on Tuesday. The family of Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's most prominent victims, are holding a memorial service in Washington, D.C. to mark 1 year since her death. It comes 2 days before King Charles arrives in the US for a 4-day state visit. Miss Giuffre's brother and sister-in-law have strongly urged the king to meet with them, as well as other survivors, but royal sources say a meeting isn't possible while police investigations are ongoing. The number of dog attacks causing injuries has risen by more than 80% since 2020. Figures obtained by the Daily Mirror reveal there were nearly 29,400 incidents last year. The increase is despite the ban on XL bullies, which came into force in February 2024. 3 people have been killed in dog attacks just this month, including a 3-month-old girl. The Princess of Wales has laid a wreath at the cenotaph to mark Anzac Day. The annual ceremony commemorates the 1915 landing on Australian and New Zealand troops in the First World War. Princess Catherine played a central role in representing the royal family at the Westminster service, laying a wreath on behalf of King Charles. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Christo.
Hi, you're with me, Christo, here on GB News, on TV and on digital radio. OK, it's time for me to conclude. Imagine calling a grooming gang victim who faced the most horrific sexual abuse a teenage pimp. Let me just repeat that. Calling a grooming gang victim a teenage pimp. Have you ever heard anything so horrific? What about the idea of being instrumental in prosecuting British veterans long after they've served our country? That's pretty horrific too, isn't it? Those are 2 awful stories about 2 national scandals. Grooming gang victims being failed and British soldiers wrongly facing legal action. What have they got in common? Well, guess what? It's reported our Prime Minister was at the centre of both. As Director of Public Prosecutions, Keir Starmer claims he was able to oversee grooming gang perpetrators facing justice. But the Express newspaper today claims during one of those Rochdale cases which Keir Starmer was in charge of, one of the victims was described as a teenage pimp for tactical reasons during the case. It's also been exposed that under Sir Keir's watch, the Crown Prosecution Service sought lesser charges against Rochdale gang member Adil Khan even after DNA analysis of a fetus confirmed he had impregnated a 13-year-old girl who later had an abortion. That decision meant Khan only served 3 years of an 8-year sentence for conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child rather than rape. Makes you feel sick, doesn't it? Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp has now written to Shabana Mahmood asking the Prime Minister to apologise for what he calls disgraceful failures, and that Starmer's involvement in these grooming gang cases is looked at as part of the wider review into the scandal. But what do both these stories tell you about the lawyer we have in charge of our country? If it's not sickening enough, another story might just go to the heart of what the Prime Minister is really like. That's been exposed by The Telegraph today. Keir Starmer was a pioneer of groundbreaking legal claims that paved the way for the witch hunt against British troops in Iraq. That's according to his own Attorney General, Lord Hermer, his own testimony. Yes, Sir Keir had worked on 2 key legal claims which established that human rights laws in the UK should also apply in Iraq, where British troops were deployed. Those cases gave Iraqis a green light to sue the British government for false imprisonment and mistreatment, and led to some Iraqi insurgents falsely claiming British troops had executed Iraqis after the Battle of Danny Boy in 2004. Now, those claims were eventually dropped after the deliberate lies, that's how they were described, of the clients of Lord Hermer, yes, that name again, were exposed at the public inquiry 10 years later. So we've got a Prime Minister who, as a lawyer, failed grooming gang victims, and a Prime Minister who, as a lawyer, helped British veterans be falsely accused of crimes after they'd served this country. What does this say about the kind of man that we have in charge? Now, Keir Starmer will, of course, say he was only doing his job. He had to do these things to get justice, that human rights are more important than anything else. But doesn't this go to the heart of the problem of having a lawyer instead of a leader as Prime Minister? Don't these revelations lead us to legitimately ask what values he holds as a man? And most importantly, how on earth could you have faith in our Prime Minister to have your back, to do the right thing, if you've been a victim of a grooming gang or if you serve our country in the armed forces? I'll answer. I'm afraid you can't. Now, maybe legally, Starmer was doing the right thing, but morally, this all absolutely stinks. OK, let's get some reaction to that now. I'm joined by former Labour advisor Danny Shaw. So, Danny, I mean, it's pretty grim stuff, isn't it, when you hear that the Express have exposed this language used to describe a teenage pimp in a court case that's meant to be prosecuting the perpetrators against these grooming gangs. It doesn't look good, does it?
Well, that is very unfortunate and inappropriate language, and it's the wrong kind of language to use. Whether or not Keir Starmer was directly responsible for that language, I think is open to question. He was the Director of Public Prosecutions, in charge of the Crown Prosecution Service that prosecutes literally tens of thousands of cases every year. I don't think he had sight of the vast bulk of cases. Probably only the most high-profile ones came across his desk, and the choice of words that he used I don't think were his. So I think it's a little bit tenuous to pin that particular one on him, particularly given the fact that actually during his time at the Crown Prosecution Service, and I was covering that as a Home Affairs correspondent at the time, he was incredibly progressive about tackling violence against women and girls and pursuing prosecutions, particularly following Operation U-Tree, following the revelations about Jimmy Savile, when it became obvious that a number of other celebrities were implicated in sexual abuse, and the CPS brought some successful prosecutions. And he actually was the one who rewrote some guidance to basically say, you know, you have to take victims more seriously, and just because they give unclear, incoherent accounts, it doesn't mean they're not telling the truth. I absolutely remember a briefing when he launched those guidelines. So, Christo, I think you need to be a bit careful about pinning that particular allegation on him. My goodness me, there's a huge amount of criticism that you can stack up against Keir Starmer and his record as Prime Minister. Not sure that's the best example, because it happens to be in the Express. express.
The issue that I have, though, is that he can't have it both ways. Keir Starmer is very good at trying to take credit for things, and what he has done is said, well, look, I want to take credit for this stuff. On my watch, these prosecutions happened. Well, if on his watch that language was used as well, ultimately, he's the guy at the top. He can't take credit for the good stuff and then you assert that we should forgive him for the bad stuff or say he wasn't aware of the bad stuff.
I think you can look at his overall record if you want to go back to 2008 whenever it was, and look at his overall record as head of the Crown Prosecution Service. But picking individual cases or individual comments made in a case that probably never came across his desk is a little bit rich, to be honest with you. Goodness me, we can have a debate about Keir Starmer and how he's doing as PM and how Labour is tanking in the polls. We can have a debate about that and whether he should stay as Prime Minister. But picking something up from well over a decade ago, some comments made by a prosecuting lawyer that probably had absolutely nothing to do with him is faintly ridiculous.
OK, well, let me put to you the question that I ended there with, though. If you were someone who was a victim of a grooming gang yourself now, and you read that story today, would you have confidence that the Prime Minister would do the right thing by you?
I probably wouldn't have confidence in the authorities full stop because of how I've been treated and because of the fact that, so many of these girls and young women were not taken seriously by the authorities and there may have been cover-ups in some councils as well, and the police certainly didn't do their job. So I probably wouldn't have confidence. No, I wouldn't.
But you would be in favour, though, of what Chris Philp has called for today, and that any wider investigation into the grooming gangs should directly look at what did go across Keir Starmer's desk, what he knew about individual cases, and that any of the language or any of the lesser charges that were put forward on his watch should be part of that review.
I think there absolutely should be an inquiry into what the Crown Prosecution Service, whether it was under him or after he left or before he arrived, what they did, how much they knew, what they said, what their approach was in individual cases. I mean, the inquiry is looking at specific areas of the country. And if those areas of the country, there are decisions by the Crown Prosecution Service that need to be examined, and if that's the time when he was DPP, absolutely open the books, look at it all. I don't have any problem with that. But picking sort of one phrase out like that, I don't think really makes an argument, frankly.
OK, well, then let's talk about veterans. I mean, again, if you were a veteran in this country and you knew that Keir Starmer was the pioneer of groundbreaking, I mean, those were the words used by Lord Herman, groundbreaking legal claims that paved the way for a witch hunt against British troops on completely false allegations, you would have absolutely no confidence that the Prime Minister would have your back in any kind of conflict.
Well, I think some veterans would absolutely take that view. I'm not sure. I can't speak for every veteran. I've never served in the armed forces, so I don't want to speak for them. Some may take a slightly more rounded view and look at the government's record on defence spending and what they're doing in Ukraine, for example, supporting Ukraine, etc., and take a more rounded view than the position that he took, not when he was in government, not when he was an MP, but when he was a barrister pursuing some particular cases.
But this was his choice to do
that,
though. This wasn't the cab rank rule. This wasn't cases that just came before him. He made a choice to do this. And there have been other examples where he's done that as well, the foreword for the book he wrote. And again, doesn't it go to the crux of what kind of man he is, that he actually would spend his time trying to think of ways in which British troops could be prosecuted after the fact?
Christo, he was a specialist on human rights, and everyone knew that when he was elected leader of the Labour Party, and then when Labour was elected into government with him at the helm. Everyone knew that. The record is there. He was a barrister who brought some human rights claims and defended some very unpalatable, disgusting individuals, frankly.
That's part of the cab rank rule.
In the courts.
People who came across his desk
where he felt that there had been injustice. If you don't like that record, don't vote him in. Don't vote for him.
But it's a bit late now.
That's what he did in his past job. Everyone knew that.
We've kind of got him, but I just question the character as someone that would go out of their way, not through just cases that came across his desk, but go out of his way to actually pursue human rights cases that could see veterans being prosecuted and actually ultimately face charges that were found out to be absolute lies. But I take what you're saying, and I very much appreciate you taking the time to talk to us here on GB News. That's the former Labour advisor, Danny Shaw, this afternoon. We'll debate this, of course, and find out what you've got to say about both those stories and whether you think it really affects the way you see Keir Starmer, whether he's more of a lawyer than a leader, whether you actually hold that past as a lawyer against him. But good news first, Great British Giveaway. Final week to see how you could bring a brand new car. You could win that 4-berth camper van, £25,000 for tax-free cash as well. So it's a camper van, it's not a car. Did I say it was a car? It's a camper van. You don't get a car as well. Camper van is enough, but you can use that for summer holidays. Biggest prize of the year so far. Here is how you can win it.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize of the year so far. Just in time for summer, you could be driving away with your very own 4-berth camper van. This Benivan 122 could give you the perfect getaway this year, as it comes complete with all of the features you'd expect of a vehicle worth over £67,000. A built-in kitchen and bathroom, dedicated living areas, and panoramic opening rear doors. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. We'll also give you an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close on the 1st of May, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
So it's Christo here on GB News in for Nana. And of course, we'll be debating coming up whether Sir Keir Starmer's past as a lawyer has helped or hindered him, whether your view of him has changed as a result of what you've just heard, right here on GB News.
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
Now, the Labour Party likes to paint Nigel Farage as a plastic patriot, but cop a load of this. Yes, it's the plasticine Chancellor. And I'm joined by the artist himself now, Wilfred Wood, who's certainly got the nation talking. Wilfred, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Your mighty work adorns our screens there, and there's a certain uncanny likeness to the Chancellor. Tell us what inspired you to sculpt her.
Well, she's obviously a big sort of public figure, and she's so incredibly dull. And it's quite interesting to try and make an interesting sculpture out of someone so boring.
And you've certainly achieved that. And I believe you have your mighty work with you now. Can we perhaps take a closer look at the plasticine Chancellor? God, she's big, mate.
She's big and heavy. She's really heavy.
What a fine conch she has. Look at the size of that nose.
Well, she has got quite a considerable conch. And obviously, if you're doing a caricature, that's the sort of thing you rather tend to pick on meanly.
And it has to be said, Wilfred, to be fair, you are a satirist. I understand you've made puppets before for Spitting Image. This is your bread and butter, right? And this has certainly got the nation talking. What's the reaction been to your work?
Well, sometimes things go... I make things all the time, all sorts of characters and celebs, and I paint just normal, ordinary people, so to speak. But sometimes things kind of take off a bit. I did one of Liz Truss before and ended up on your channel. So I think you're my biggest fan, so thanks very much.
GB News, the People's Channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hey, it's Christo here on GB News in Fanana. We're on TV and, of course, digital radio. Coming up, we'll be talking about whether you're sick of the UK turning into a fortress, basically, because of rising crime, particularly shoplifting. But now, another great British debate. Has Keir Starmer's past as a lawyer helped or hindered him? Is he more of a lawyer than a leader? This is because of the two controversies I just outlined, casting a shadow over Sir Keir Starmer's past, from these grooming gang prosecution cases and troops in Iraq, where he was instrumental in helping prosecuting these British troops. Supporters say he upheld the law. Critics say that victims and veterans were failed by him putting, I guess, the law and human rights over morality. So has Sir Keir Starmer's past as a lawyer helped or hindered him? Of course, joined by Aman Bogle, political commentator, leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell. Aman, I'll start with you. OK, might be doing the right thing legally, might be sort of manipulating, using language required legally, but morally, it's pretty distasteful, right?
Well, he's a man with no moral compass whatsoever, and I think we've heard that being said over the years about Starmer. But, I mean, basically, this man is a sort of no-win, no-fee lawyer for every wrong-un.
We're all paying. We are, but there is a fee. We are paying.
Well, certainly not for the wrong-uns that he's defended over the years. I mean, let's go down back through his illustrious career, defending every wrong-un that he could find to defend. 2001, he defended people in Trinidad, of all places, people who had. Criminals who had murdered a BBC presenter. He campaigned against death penalty in Trinidad and Tobago, not in Britain, across the seas in the Caribbean. In 2003, he defended people who were anti-Iraq war activists who had gone in to disrupt a British Army base here in England. And, of course, he's on the side of those people. Now, this is a Prime Minister who is an anti-national Prime Minister. He hasn't got a bone in his body that is serving in British national interest. We go back to his time as Director of Public Prosecutions. He served time on the Northern Ireland Policing Board. Of course, he wasn't looking out for the interests of the average Ulsterman and Ulsterwoman in Northern Ireland. He was there looking out for the interests of those who were bringing terror to our streets in Ulster. And bring it forward a bit, his best mate in government, Lord Hermer, of course, absolutely in cahoots with the whole idea of giving away our sovereignty in the Chagos. And God knows, in terms of chasing after our veterans after decades of loyal service. Which young man or woman would want to go into the British Army knowing full well that there are people out there like Keir Starmer who would stand there decades later, and not through military courts, not through court-martials, not through due process, but simply because they hate the very idea of what it means to be Britain.
I mean, it's pretty compelling there, this idea that he puts human rights and international human rights over and above the interests of the British people that now he is serving.
Yes, I think that we need to distinguish a little bit to his record, as Aman has just been going through, and the fact of being a lawyer and whether or not that's going to help him as a politician. And I mean, look, we have a lot of very prominent politicians, you know, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, Lloyd George, Ken Clarke. These were all famous politicians. You might disagree with some of their policies, but these were fantastic politicians in their own right, and they were lawyers originally. I'm an ex-lawyer, you know, I'm not Prime Minister or anything else like that, or Foreign Secretary or anything else like that.
God help us, no.
Well, let's wait and see. But what I wouldn't want to say is I don't think that's holding me back. I think the issue with Keir Starmer and the skills that come out of being a lawyer is, as a barrister, you would expect him to be coming forward with fantastic communication skills, and he doesn't have any. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, there's a point about the record and the morality of it, but there's also, what do you need as a leader? You need the leader to be out there, being charismatic, presenting correctly what needs to be done, and suggesting to us, taking us all with him, and he's unable to do that.
And I think we can all agree with that. He's an absolutely dreadful communicator. But doesn't your record before you become the leader, doesn't that give some demonstration of the kind of person you are, the cases that you choose? And it's very difficult for him now to claim that he is in favour of British troops, in favour of British values, in favour of what people on the street are worried about, when he literally, in his own time, chose, it didn't cross his desk, he chose to go after cases and try and rejig laws and set new precedents that made it easier to prosecute British troops.
I mean, on that particular issue, I'm originally an ex-army officer, short service limited commission, and I think it's appalling. And I hate to see this idea of people being dragged back into the courts years after they've left the army.
And do you believe that someone can then just immediately about turn and no longer hold those opinions just because you become Prime Minister? It goes to the essence of what kind of man he is, doesn't it?
I think, you had somebody on commenting earlier, and I do have to just remind people that, everyone knew his record when they voted him in. Now, I understand he gets voted in for a whole series of different reasons, but this was all very visible at the time that he got voted in.
I don't know whether this was known so well. Yes, he was known as a human rights lawyer, but I wonder the Conservatives were doing so badly, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference, but I wonder, had it been so clear the instrumental role that he played in British troops, ultimately, and of course it wasn't his fault they were falsely accused, but ultimately that's what happened. I wonder if he would have got so many votes.
Well, and I think politically, maybe if it had been much clearer, maybe the Labour Party wouldn't have made him their leader in the first place. So I think there's a number of different steps that we've got there. And I think, but I think we do have to come back to as well. I think the Conservatives bringing forward this issue at the moment, of course, is partly trying to continue the scandal issues and the questions of integrity for Keir Starmer. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be questioned, but there's clearly political strategy within this as well.
Okay. On the contrary, Ed, I think the Labour Party made him leader exactly because they knew exactly what type of man Keir Starmer is, exactly what he stands for and he has stood for all his life. I think the vast majority of the Parliamentary Labour Party agree with what he has done in his professional career. After all, so many of them have campaigned previously for Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, he's infamously always stood on the wrong side of history when it comes to the British national interest.
Final, very brief word to you.
Yeah, all I would say is actually I'm not entirely sure that's completely true. I think when the Labour Party looked at it, they didn't have any choices.
All right, and of course Keir Starmer and Lord Homer and all those involved would absolutely reiterate that they were working for the best interests of Britain and within the law. OK, you're with Christo here on GB News. Still to come, well, we'll have another great British debate. I'll be asking whether rising shoplifting rates, God, it's depressing, are turning the UK into a fortress. But first, here are your headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Christo, thank you. Your headlines at 4:31. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading to Pakistan for negotiations on how to end the war in Iran. Iran's foreign minister has already been in the capital but has now reportedly left. Downing Street insists the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not in question. It comes as Argentina is calling for negotiations over the territory to reopen after a leaked report revealed the US could review its position. Some breaking news. A woman has been detained as an investigation into a fatal house fire continues in Wolverhampton. 2 young children died in the fire last night. West Midlands Police say they were rescued from the burning building but were pronounced dead at the scene. Britain's deal with France to stop Channel migrants making it to the UK is bad value for money. That's what a top Belgian official has told the Telegraph newspaper. It says the UK signed a new £662 million deal with France to reduce the crossings. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunny spells, continuing to be largely dry over the next 24 hours through the rest of the weekend, though generally a bit more cloud around, some weather fronts near the northwest of the UK giving a few splashes of rain, but generally high pressure holding on as we move through the rest of the weekend. Some showers across western parts of Scotland, thicker cloud across northern and eastern Scotland into the evening may just produce 1 or 2 spots of rain. But as we head overnight, it'll be largely dry, some low cloud and fog affecting eastern parts of the UK once more, perhaps not quite as thick as last night. Under the cloud, temperatures falling to around 4 or 5 degrees in places, but any clear spells in the countryside, a touch of frost is possible. So most, it'll be a bit of a mixed start to Sunday morning. The risk of some showery rain across parts of the Highlands and the Islands, but further south and east across Scotland, a dry start with some sunny spells, though some fog patches and low cloud in places too. A mixture of cloud and a few splashes of rain for Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England as well. A grey start across some eastern parts of England, foggy in places too. Elsewhere, some hazy spells of sunshine. And as we go through the day, I think overall the picture won't change too much. Low cloud across the east should burn back to the North Sea coast. And then there'll be hazy spells of sunshine for the vast majority. So it might not be quite as blue the sky out there on a Sunday compared to today, and further splashes of rain pushing eastwards across northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures overall still well above average for the time of year for most of us, up to around 21 or 22 Celsius. Just still cool where we see some low cloud lingering. We'll also see those showers continuing to move through as we move into the evening on Sunday. And then high pressure looks like it generally stays in charge. Perhaps 1 or 2 showers around on Monday, but temperatures staying well above average.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're with me, Christo, here on GB News in for Nana, and we're, of course, on TV, digital radio. Later, we're going to be asking how important you think school uniforms are. And I'll answer that. Very important. Thank you. Debate over. Now, we're going to be talking in a moment, by the way, about shoplifting. But, of course, gbnews.com/your say. Let's do a couple of the comments that you're making today. And thank you again for you sending lots of kind comments about me being here. And thank you. I hope I'm doing Nana proud. Very kind of you. I won't read those ones. However, on the subject of Starmer and the revelations, more particularly about him paving the way for laws that made it easier to prosecute British troops, I get the impression some Labour supporters, says Joy, are having difficulty defending such a diabolical specimen as Starmer. Thank you for that. Defend Britain says, to be a leader, you have to be someone worth following. Keir Starmer will never be that person. Well, I'll add to that. The problem with Starmer, and I think this has always been his problem, is that he could be in power for 20 years and I wouldn't know how to describe Starmerism. That is, and I would almost have more respect. I wouldn't agree with a word he says, but I'd have more respect for Corbyn, because at least I could define what Corbyn thinks about. Whereas Starmer, no idea what he thinks about anything, and I don't think he does either. And one more here on gbnews.com/your say. Labour voters don't care that Starmer's a traitor. They like that. Wow. And Linda also, by the way, says, that was David that says that. Linda says, Starmer is dreadful, but when you think of who could replace him, it shows what a pickle we're in. Well, if Linda's comment didn't depress you, this will. Because rising shoplifting rates are asking whether you believe it's turning us into Fortress Britain. Greggs have scrapped self-service in some of their stores in its toughest anti-theft move yet. Sausage rolls and steak bakes are now behind staff-only counters, ending open displays. Of course, this shift follows repeated thefts, staff left powerless as shelves were cleared. Shoplifting across the UK is hitting record levels. Retailers are reporting hundreds of incidents every day. Other major chains are also ramping up security, from body cameras to in-store guards. Crime is becoming more organised. Now, is shoplifting, unfortunately, something that we just have to learn to live with? Just like bollards on bridges and no phone zones on streets. Well, we still have Aman Bogle, political commentator, leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell, here talking about this. Ed, I'll start with you. I feel like, I talk about this a lot on this channel, that I feel like we are moving to a society where all of us, our behaviour, the law-abiding citizens, we're expected to change. I have to now see bollards everywhere because otherwise people will terrorists will drive into people, because we don't solve terrorists, we have bollards. I can't get my phone out. And I'm expected not to get my phone out because people will steal my phone. It's not about catching the thieves, it's about me changing my behaviour. Now, I can't go in and choose what I want in a supermarket or Greggs. I have to have it handed to me because, unfortunately, someone will steal. And we don't solve the shoplifting, we change all our behaviour. So do we just have to accept this is now Britain?
I think it's very sad, and I think the shoplifting thing has got completely out of control. I mean, one of the stories for Greggs, I mean, it's the 3G story. It's Gosling, Greggs and Greenford. I mean, a particular man that went in and 38 times, I believe, in about 6 weeks, went in and robbed the same Greggs store. And then, actually, he only went away for he got a 4-month suspended sentence. And I think then you were talking about, you know, Costa and Pret and that, putting in extra cameras, Sainsbury's extra cameras at
body
the
cams.
Body cams in Marks and Spencer's, yes. I mean, it's happening right across the board, and I think they have to be taking their precautions. But it's a very, very sad state of affairs we've got ourselves into. I mean, I think the police are reporting now something like 1,500 shoplifting offences a day, and actually the retailers' associations are suggesting they're underplaying it by 20 to 40 times.
That appears to be all they're doing, though, the police. I mean, they're all sitting in rooms talking about the statistics, but they're not actually turning up. And in fairness, that isn't all down to them, as annoying as it is. I mean, the Conservatives have got a fair bit of blame in this by saying, essentially decriminalising shoplifting under £200.
Well, I think there's some organisational, there's some policy issues and that sort of thing. I have to say, I think the absolute biggest issue is cash. You've got to put cash into the resources to get these things dealt with. And I think at the same time, cash, and now I'm talking economy, you've got to give people in the country hope. And people in the country need to see there is an economic strategy, there's an upwards, there's an opportunity where they're going, the horizon looks better than it is now, so they don't feel desperate. And I think that goes through all of us.
Why do you need to do that, not to steal? I think that we've got one of the most repellent governments we've had in an awfully long time, but that doesn't make me want to go. I mean, maybe I should pop across to the Marks and Spencer's across the road and, get myself a bottle of champers because, I'm annoyed about Starmer.
Well, they certainly wouldn't be able to do anything about it, Christo, because, as you said, under £200.
Right, hold the fort. I'm off. I'm off to get us a little bit of champers. That'll be lovely this afternoon in the sunshine.
Isn't it a real indictment of where we find ourselves in Britain today, Christo, that we've gone from this high-trust, low-crime society that, you can only feel nostalgic about now, watching old YouTube videos about London of yore, where, people would walk past, pick up a newspaper and just drop in the tuppence that they needed to pay for it without anyone stealing any of it. But look, I would disagree, Ed. This is not about giving just people hope and say, please don't go and steal. There's hope on the horizon.
I don't think I suggested that.
On the contrary, I mean, look, this is about getting back to basis of basic law and order. Our borders are broken. Our bins are broken. They don't get collected enough. And let's be honest, our high streets are broken. It's about basic policing. Last year, we had a situation where Robert Jenrick, he went and did a bit of an investigation. He went and visited these car boot sales. And the police were finally having to take some action. And you know what? Lo and behold, they found £80,000 of stolen goods in just one car boot sale. So it begs the question, are the police policing our tweets, or are they policing our streets? They're not turning up to investigate all of this enough. They're not turning up to prosecute these criminals enough. And let's be honest, the government, the Home Office, is certainly not deporting enough of these people enough.
It is about the sense of fairness. Just very quickly, because
I think the police do a great job in what they do. I don't think there's enough of them. I don't think we've given them enough resources. I don't think we're actually helping them in their job. But also, you have got to put more money into all these things you talked about. And the only way you can do that is grow the economy.
But where does that come from? We're paying the highest taxes in history.
Yeah, but exactly. No, we've got to grow the economy. We've got to have a clean industrial economy that's growing, and we actually see the future.
You do that by taxing people into
I agree.
Oblivion. OK, well, of course, this show is nothing without you and your opinions. Let's now speak to one of our great British voices. Of course, your opportunity to be on the show. Tell us what you really think about the topics we're discussing. Alan Cook from London, afternoon to you.
Hi, Christo. Thanks for having me on. And hi, Ed. And hi there, Aman, as well.
OK, what do you think of today? What do you think of this story then? I mean, do you feel like this is sort of demonstrative of a wider decline of Britain and the social contract being broken?
Well, absolutely. What I'd normally say to Nana now is actually it's the wrong question, and the problem is
you dare to say that to Nana? Good luck to you.
Oh yeah, she hits me hard every time, but I just got to say it. So when she's not here, I can't miss out on that one. But yeah, the problem is, we're talking about the symptom, and actually we should be really dealing with the cause. And there aren't enough prison places. The crippled and compromised criminal justice system is unable to deal with crime at the moment. The Boris wave brought in, 4.5 million people at least, and we haven't had an increased investment in places in dentists, in schools, in hospitals, but also in prisons. The population has increased massively, and sorry to turn to immigration, but a lot of the illegal immigration, the crime stats are putting them far higher than indigenous people. So we need even more prison places, and they're just not there. So we have nowhere to put these people. We're talking about war at the moment, and the fact that our army, willing or not, we don't have enough equipment.
Okay, so your point is essentially your point is deterrent. I mean, basically, what you're saying is there is no deterrent.
Ed mentioned hope, and what we need is a deterrent. There is no deterrent. What was it? It was the Crime Antisocial Behaviour Act, wasn't it, and Policing Act of 2014, which actually introduced this £200 limit. So, Christo, you could probably get a bottle of Cristal for just about under that. It's going to be pretty close, but maybe not for M&S.
Alan, thank you. That's a good suggestion. Alan, I've got to leave it there, but thank you. That's a nice suggestion. Of course, we're not endorsing anyone going out and shoplifting, as tempted as we all might be, because, of course, you can get away with it. But just very quickly, I think that I'm a real fan of the idea that if you get caught doing something, I hate the term low level, but let's just use it for this, actually get you in prison for a month, scare the bejeebers out of you, and you won't do it again. This idea that you get strike after strike after strike after strike, you're sort of desensitised to the justice system by then, in which case then you're already on a path that is bad.
I probably agree with you. Actually,
oh God, I must have it wrong.
So I probably agree with you, but I come back to the thing of if you don't have the resources, and you talked about tax, if you don't have the resources, either the cash coming in the front because we've got a good economy, or my pocket as being taxed, you haven't got enough money to do it.
There's quite a simple solution to this, Christo. We deport the tens of thousands of foreign criminals in our jails.
All right, perfect. I'm going to leave that there. I mean, that is a wonderful GB News note to leave it on, by the way. A statement for Greggs. A statement from Greggs is that this is one of the initiatives we're trialling across a small number of shops which are exposed to higher levels of anti-social behaviour. OK, coming up, we're going to talk about how important school uniforms are. I'd say very, but if you're in search of some holiday sun, well, here are the top destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
A big talking point across southern Europe at the moment is just how warm it is for the time of year across parts of Portugal, Spain and France. We do have some showers affecting the Canary Islands, but it's the showers with that heat in Iberia that are turning heavy and thundery, starting to ease as we go through tomorrow and into next week. Dry for many parts around the central Med, with the showery rain affecting Greece at the moment, clearing away towards the east, and there's more fine, dry, warm weather to come for many as we go into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News, anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
To warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Afternoon, it's Christo in for Nana here on GB News on TV and digital radio. Later, we're going to be talking about loathed 20-mile-per-hour zones and whether Conservative plans to get rid of them, whether that's a good thing. But question for you, how important are school uniforms? MPs are calling for tracksuits and trainers to be allowed in classrooms. A new report from the Culture, Media and Sport Committee says traditional uniforms might be holding pupils back. Critics warn relaxing uniform rules could undermine discipline and standards across schools. Well, Aman Bogle, political commentator, Ed Gemmell from the Climate Party. I think that this is the slow descent into anarchy, and it's this kind of story. I said this last night on Patrick's show. This kind of story makes me want to bring back the death penalty, because I'm sort of like, it's the same thing as, you know, those mainly women, but some men do it as well, I should say, but, you know, turn up to the school gates in their pyjamas, or, you know, go to the supermarket in their pyjamas. Or,
so you want school uniforms for parents as well?
Yes, I want standards. I just want standards. When I first met my partner, it used to drive me mad that, like, even just to go out or walk the dog or to take the bin out, he would want his hair to look nice and want to wear, like, nice chinos and things like that to take the dog out. And actually now I realise that actually that's exactly what we should be doing, because we have just descended into this this slobbery.
Well, I mean, look, it's boils down.
Where's your tie?
Yeah, exactly. Where is my tie? Well, in my defence, I have got my
pocket square. All right, fair
and it's a Union Jack, so there you go.
But is getting rid of the school uniform part of that slow descent into us maybe lowering our sartorial standards?
Well, it's a wider dumbing down of society, I would argue, Krista. I mean, this is about self-dignity. It's about discipline. This is about, you know, having a uniform which sort of instills focus and regularity into pupils in a school. It's about levelling the playing field when it comes to having everyone in a school. Look, you're here to learn, you have some discipline, and you know what? You have a sense of belonging to this institution that you call your school. And if you can't do that, then what on earth is going to be the end game of our politicians telling us, well, you know what, rock up in a T-shirt and a pair of shorts and everything will be fine?
I mean, isn't that a really fair point? And school is about learning that sometimes you have to wear things, do things you don't really want to do as part of being wider society and being responsible. And the uniform is a part of that.
I completely agree. Tracksuits and trainers in the classroom, balmy. I think we should absolutely be having school uniforms. I'm very for headmistresses and headmasters being able to decide to some extent what their school uniform is, how it's going to be, how many articles, whatever. Having girls and boys in exactly the same, that's totally up to them. But school uniform, absolutely. I do, though, think that to some extent this is a bit of a, you know, making a mountain out of a molehill. There's much bigger issues for our educational system.
If we would ever do that here.
I think there are much bigger issues with the educational system. You know, lack of budgets, violence in schools at the moment.
But don't tell me, tell the Culture Committee who've decided on this.
Exactly, and I do think, and it overlaps to some extent, because discipline, of course, we don't want to see worse discipline in schools.
Should it, Ed? I mean,
no, I'm not saying that.
All these things can be tackled at the same time. After all, you know, we are such a civilizational nation that, you know, we brought civilization to so much of the world. Surely,
and actually, sorry to jump in, but I think that they are related. I mean, Catherine. I forget her name as well now. The brilliant
Catherine
Birbalsingh.
Yeah.
Well, she has really tried to uphold uniform standards in order to keep discipline in the school itself much tighter.
Well, indeed, and that's why our school is so successful in raising up the level of all children from all different sorts of backgrounds into making a success.
Apparently, this is about the fact that because you need to have a specialist kit for PE, if they kind of wear tracksuits all day, it won't mean you have to have PE kit, and it's going to make the pupils be able to exercise more easily.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that's a bit of a sideshow, to be honest. I do like it. I mean, and this was coming from the Commons Culture, Media and Sport Committee in Parliament. I do like the fact, though, that they are trying to get more people to do sport. I mean, I like the fact that kids are going to be encouraged to do sport. I think that's really important. I would like to see much more, you know, of our kids going from school up into our national teams and all that sort of thing, and seeing more success at that level, as well as the opportunity to healthier lifestyles and everything else. So I like the idea.
As long as they're wearing blazers when they are being educated. Listen, I've got to leave it there.
More sport, but keep the blazer.
All right, got to leave it there. All right, but we'll be back doing more with you, and coming up as well, Falklands veterans fearing Trump's threat could restart the conflict. Loads to discuss on the Falklands. That is all coming up. It's Christo in for Nana, all next after this break here on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize of the year so far. You could be driving away with your very own 4-berth camper van. This Benny Van 122 could give you the perfect getaway this year. We'll also give you an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close on the 1st of May, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From cold mornings
To warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, afternoon, welcome to GB News on TV and on digital radio. I'm Christo Fufas, filling in for Nana Akua. And again, I've still not had a phone call. She's not at the door complaining, so I think I'm doing okay. But for the next hour, myself and my panel will be taking on some of the big stories and, of course, getting more of your opinion. Mine, theirs, yours, everyone's. gbnews.com/your say. So we've got two familiar Saturday superstars, dare I call them, political commentator Adnan Bogle, leader of the Climate Party Ed Gemmell as well. Lots we'll be discussing. Falkland Islands veterans hitting back at US President Donald Trump after this leaked email from the Pentagon suggesting plans to review Britain's claim to the territory as punishment for failing to join the Iran war. Argentina is also saying it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the islands. We're keeping an eye on the Prime Minister potentially being on the brink. Cabinet ministers reportedly plotting his exit. Allies of Angela Rayner are demanding Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood be sacked. Angela Rayner's denying this. Labour infighting is intensifying. Support for Keir Starmer appears to be collapsing. We're keeping an eye on that story for you today. Tories as well pledging to scrap 20-mile-per-hour zones nationwide, unveiling a national plan for drivers promising major changes to motoring rules across the UK. Critics argue lower speed limits improve safety and warn these plans could undermine environmental targets. And Britain, we've been discussing the slow descent into a crime-ridden hellhole and a fortress nation. Greggs is scrapping self-service by putting food behind the counter. So we've been talking about forcing ourselves to lock everything down. So all of that we've been talking about. We'll talk about more of it in the next hour. More of your views coming up. gbnews.com/your say. Don't forget as well, you can scan the QR code on the screens. And of course, we'll get to some of your comments in just a moment. But first, let's get the latest news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Christo, thank you. It's just gone 5 o'clock. These are your headlines. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading to Pakistan for discussions on ways to end the war in Iran. Meanwhile, it's being reported that the Iranian delegation has now flown out of Pakistan. That's according to 2 Pakistani government sources. Iran is blaming America's continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz and what they say are excessive demands. Meanwhile, 4 people have been killed in Israeli strikes on southern Lebanon. It follows the deaths of 6 people in the area yesterday. Israel's military says it's targeting positions used by Hezbollah. The attacks come despite a 3-week ceasefire extension announced by President Trump on Thursday. Argentina says it wants to reopen negotiations with the UK over the Falkland Islands after reports the US could review its position on the territory. A leaked Pentagon email details options for President Donald Trump's administration to punish NATO allies for refusing to support its war on Iran. Downing Street is adamant the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands is not in question. A woman has been detained as an investigation into a fatal house fire continues in Wolverhampton. 2 young children died in the fire last night. West Midlands Police says they were rescued from the burning building but were pronounced dead at the scene. A social media influencer has died after she was hit by a car in central London on Sunday, the 19th of April. That's according to the Metropolitan Police. 32-year-old Claudia Glam, whose real name is Claudia Zakshevska, was injured along with 2 pedestrians after they were struck by a car in London's Soho in the early hours of that Sunday morning. Former X Factor finalist turned influencer Gabrielle Carrington appeared in court this week and was charged with attempted murder, which will now be amended to murder. That's what the force have now confirmed. A man has been charged with the murder of a 27-year-old woman in Westminster 2 years ago after police extradited him from the United Arab Emirates. 19-year-old Enzo Bettamio was flown over from Dubai to the UK. He appeared in court today, charged with the fatal stabbing of the woman known as Angela in April of 2024 near her home in Bayswater. He's been remanded into custody and is due at the Old Bailey on Tuesday. The Princess of Wales has laid a wreath at the cenotaph to mark Anzac Day. The annual ceremony commemorates the 1915 landing of Australian and New Zealand troops in the First World War. Princess Catherine played a central role in representing the royal family at the service at Westminster Abbey, laying a wreath on behalf of King Charles. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Christo.
Hi, it's Christo in for Nana this afternoon right here on GB News. Thanks so much for your company. And before we get on and talk about the Falkland Islands, let's do a couple of the comments that are coming in this afternoon. gbnews.com/your say. And by the way, again, I'll say it again, I did last time as well. Thank you so much for all of your kind comments about me being in the big chair. And I've had lots of lovely comments on X as well, and I should acknowledge those. I would never be so self-indulgent as to read them out. What? Oh, we're cancelling the Falklands debate just so I can read out nice comments. Not really. OK, but we'll do some of the comments that you are saying. This is about uniforms. Peter says a uniform, school uniforms being scrapped, this is, instills pride, teamwork, camaraderie and belonging. Thank you for that one. Another one here as well. Tracksuits are for lazy people, says Philip. I don't know, Olympians wear tracksuits, so I'm not sure you can say a blanket thing about that. Mike is suggesting that we put shoplifters in stocks in a town centre on a Saturday morning and have eggs thrown at them. I think shoplifting would stop almost immediately. I wonder how many shops would supply the eggs for that, for free. Foxy Lady says, how many times have we heard Starmer is on his way out, and yet he is still here? You're absolutely right. Petrified pensioner back on school uniforms says having no school uniform will cause more inequality between children who have wealthy parents and those who have poorer parents. We've all been through this before. It was thought then that the uniform created equality. Very, very good point. OK, let's get back to our top story. Fresh alarm bells ringing over to the islands. US President Donald Trump is said to be weighing options amid wider tensions as Argentina is now pushing for renewed talks over the future of the islands. Downing Street insists sovereignty is secure. But how worried should we be? Well, let's remind ourselves of what Falklands veteran Simon Weston had to say to GB News.
First and foremost, I don't know what it's got to do with Mr. Trump, because it's none of his business what the sovereignty of the islands is. The people there had a referendum, and it was like 99% of the people there voted to remain under British sovereignty. They don't deserve this. They've done nothing wrong. They've made a great success since the war 44 years ago. They've made a great legacy out of the conflict. They're doing incredibly well. Leave them alone to get on with their lives peacefully.
OK, let's now cross live to the news editor at the Press Association, Theo Usherwood, who joins us here on GB News. Afternoon to you, Theo. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Didn't Simon Weston make a very good point there that actually the people who are going to be feeling very uneasy about all of this is actually the Falkland Islanders, who maybe will be the collateral damage over a dithering Prime Minister who has alienated our special relationship with the US President?
Absolutely. I've heard many interviews with, over the last 24 hours, with Falkland Islanders who have been on programmes such as yours, making the point that they feel like they're never given a say. That they feel like that they're shut out, that they don't feel like they're pawns that can be used, but nevertheless they are. I think the important point is you allude to there, Christo, is that what happens, there is you'd believe, or the government would like to believe, that simply by not taking part in offensive action against Iran, there is no penalty to that, there is no cost to that. But the US President, Donald Trump, is feeling bruised, he's feeling angry at the fact that whilst the UK and other European nations, in his view, will feel the benefit of having Iran curtailed, its nuclear program curtailed, its regime curtailed by the military action that the United States and Israel has taken, it is not prepared, none of those countries in Europe or beyond the United States and Israel, who would consider themselves allies or part of the NATO alliance, have been willing to actually commit forces to offensive action against Iran, and he's annoyed about it. He's irked about it. The one thing I would say, I'd really hope is, we've got next week the King and Queen visiting the United States, whilst Donald Trump has made it abundantly clear in the last few weeks that he is not a fan at the moment of Keir Starmer. He has spoken always very warmly about King Charles. He was he very much enjoyed his state visits when he visited the late Queen, or the one state visit when he visited the late Queen. And we can only hope that King Charles can use his soft power, his unique diplomatic mission to try and curtail the president's ire.
I've known you for a long time, Theo, and I knew you in your previous life, which some people might not know about, as a political editor for a major broadcast station. So you were in the halls of Westminster, moving among some of the movers and shakers there. I ask you this to draw on that experience because I wonder whether there would have been a way for the Prime Minister to have played this, that would have kept our special relationship with the States, allowed Donald Trump to maybe use the bases, not alienated him, while still being able to say, actually, we're not directly involved in this conflict in Iran, we're just helping out the US. Do you think that the Prime Minister could have played it better and actually been able to play both sides?
I think a Prime Minister would have been able to play it better. I don't think Keir Starmer could have played it better. And I'll tell you this for why. Because the Prime Minister did allow bases like RAF Fairford in Gloucestershire to be used by US Lancer bombers to commit to launch missions, but not to only certain defensive missions, not to launch offensive strikes against Iran. And you have to remember, this is a Labour Prime Minister who is severely weakened, and he is weakened by the left of his party, who do not support military action in Iran whatsoever. He's weakened by the Green Party. I know you have to be very careful at this particular moment in time because of
well, let's not even talk about.
Let's not go over there. Okay, if you don't want to go over there, it's fine. I was going to word it in a particular way, but I won't even bother. But he is. This is. Whereas I think a Conservative Prime Minister would have had the ability to have taken a much more robust approach. This Labour Prime Minister doesn't at this particular time. Indeed, I think even if you were to,
that sounds very much like, though, a Prime Minister then that is thinking about his position and the people behind him rather than potentially what's in the national interest, which is a terrible position for us to be in as a country, especially at a time of crisis.
But this is what happens, Christo, when you have a Prime Minister. Indeed, you have a political system at the moment, as we do, where we lurch from where whoever is Prime Minister lurches from crisis to crisis. And previous Conservative Prime Ministers have found themselves making decisions because they need to keep their own party at any particular time happy. I'm saying this as a neutral observer, right? I don't think Keir Starmer, from where and I don't think this is a unique view in people who look keenly on what is happening in Westminster, but Keir Starmer, where he is right now, doesn't have the political headroom to have pushed it any further than he pushed it in terms of supporting US military action in the United States. I would also say that when you look at the polling, and there was a very interesting poll in the Mirror a couple of weeks ago, that actually the public is surprised. It is not uniform, but when you look at the polling, the public is surprisingly supportive of the way the Prime Minister has handled the conflict in the Middle East, and surprisingly supportive of the way that he has handled Donald Trump. That is not to say that there aren't those who are, there are many people in the country who are deeply concerned about what is happening. But when you compare his stature on the world stage, and when you compare his stature in terms of relations with the United States, and indeed in particular as they pertain to what's happening in the Middle East, he actually polls significantly better than when you compare that to how he deals with problems.
It's just whether people believe that's going to ultimately be in the national interest, ultimately long term. Theo Usherwood, news editor at Press Association, thanks for taking the time to talk to us right here on GB News. Let's now talk to the Executive Director of Comms Prosperity, Tim Dosha, who joins us live on the line. Thanks for taking the time to talk to GB News this afternoon, Tim. So what do you make of all this? Should America be getting involved? They're not directly involved in the sovereignty in the Falkland Islands, so a lot of people will be saying, well, look, what's it got to do with you? But then ultimately, without them, we probably don't have much, the UK this is, of a defence of the Falkland Islands, so that does imply some sort of involvement, right?
Well, hey, Christo, thank you for having me on. And also, I do think tracksuits are lazy. If we can be in suit and a tie on Saturday, I'm not saying everybody should be, but, you can do a little better in public, okay? That's what I want to start with.
You can say anything you want now about the Falkland Islands, and I'll agree with you.
All right, here's the take here from me. I want to focus on President Trump, and I want to focus on this email that was leaked. President Trump is frustrated at NATO. We know that. We know that he's frustrated with Sir Keir Starmer because of his balking and getting involved in Iran. However, he is still having a state visit with the king. So that should tell you that President Trump cares deeply about the special relationship between the UK. And if he has to go around Sir Keir to get to the king to make it happen, I think that's what he's doing. So President Trump is the ultimate deal maker. He has his eyes set. Now, and with NATO, it's the same thing. Now, with this leaked email, who did it come from? It was from Elbridge Colby's office in the Pentagon. And we know from Elbridge Colby, he is an isolationist in many respects. And there have been leaks that we've suspected from his office before that have sort of undermined the president's strategy. Because again, if you're an isolationist, then something like this comes up, you slip an email, and then next thing you know, we're talking about it on GB News and what it means. So we have to be very careful who this is coming from, and does it mash up with exactly what President Trump is trying to do? Is Trump trying to repair this relationship, or is he actually trying to pull out support from the Falklands? I don't know if I would hold much sway in this.
So what would you suggest if you were advising our king at the moment? And you know, I mean, this is our secret weapon, but a not so secret weapon. And I love the fact that in the United Kingdom we have this, and we have this soft diplomacy, and we're able to deploy that. What, do you think that you would be advising the king to use his speech? Because inevitably there'll be a dinner and there'll be speeches given and that kind of thing. Should the king be emphasising that special relationship in the speech without maybe referencing the Falkland Islands? Should he talk about the Falkland Islands, or would that be getting too political? Or what do you think should happen?
Well, look, and again, this comes from the leak, so we don't actually know what President Trump has said about the Falkland Islands at this point.
We do know that the special relationship is in trouble, and that's precisely when the diplomacy of the royal family can help.
And knowing that the king is not supposed to really be political, I would say that you stick with what President Trump wants to talk to the king about, which is the special relationship. His family is from Scotland. You know, this is a very, very deep, meaningful relationship to President Trump. So I would press into that if I were the king. I would remind the president of how the UK and America have worked together in the past. I'm not so sure that I would be doing direct diplomacy with the president on specific political issues that are, you know, leaked emails. But again, that's up to the king's staff to do. But what I would say is, for President Trump, I would say that he needs to press in to what he's frustrated with, and how the UK could potentially posture a better, more supportive front to the special relationship, instead of being what Sir Keir Starmer has done, which is kind of punting and saying, yeah, we have a special relationship, but we're not going to really get involved. You know, why not?
That's what I don't understand. I mean, I think about our great leaders of the past, like Thatcher, and I don't know whether she would have waded in, but I definitely think that she would have been politically savvy enough to play both sides and say, look, we're not going to get involved in the war, but you go on.
Why haven't there been touting the fact that we're using British bases? I mean, that should be something.
Because he's scared to death of his party.
Exactly.
He's scared to death.
Yep, and so that is something to continue to remind the American people that yes, while Sir Keir Starmer is dragging his feet, hemming and hawing, as we say here in America, and talking out of both sides of his mouth, really. You really do have to remind people that the Brits are actually helping us in a meaningful way, that the French aren't, and that Spain isn't. And so this really does have to be a, you know, joining together. Okay, we messed up the narrative in the beginning, but we actually are coming to the aid of our friends and our allies with a special relationship.
He's managed to get himself into the most preposterous situation on lose-lose on both sides, because he has ended up helping, but he's got none of the goodwill that would have come from helping. If this was Thatcher, she would have been sat with Ronald Reagan with her handbag, hitting him over the head, asking him what the strategy was long term. And I tell you now, she'd have got an answer. Listen, the Executive Director of Comms Prosperity, Tim Dozier, thank you for taking the time to talk to us right here on GB News. Right, time for the Great British Giveaway. It's the final week. You could win a brand new 4-berth camper van, £25,000 of tax-free cash, all in time for summer. It's the biggest prize of the year so far. Here are all the details.
It's the final week to see how you could win our biggest prize of the year so far. Just in time for summer, you could be driving away with your very own 4-berth camper van. This Benivan 122 could give you the perfect getaway this year, as it comes complete with all of the features you'd expect of a vehicle worth over £67,000. A built-in kitchen and bathroom, dedicated living areas, and panoramic opening rear doors. Plus, you can drive it on your existing licence. We'll also give you an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close on the 1st of May, so make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Christo here on GB News in for Nana, and of course we're on TV and digital radio. Now, later, we're going to be asking the really uncomfortable question, whether life is easier for good-looking people. And coming up, we'll talk about 20-mile-per-hour zones as well, whether they should be scrapped. That's coming up next.
From cold mornings
To warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car,
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Costa bosses have now had to hire bouncers to protect their sandwiches. Don't get me wrong, the sandwiches are quite expensive, I can see why. But isn't it just another example of how we don't feel particularly safe? I know you could find a clip of Sadiq Khan saying London is the safest in comparison to loads of other cities. That's talking about homicide rates. It's a different world. Homicide rates versus shoplifting.
Well, compared to the favelas in Rio de Janeiro, it is safer.
If you find the right metric, if you cherry-pick your data, but no one enjoys being in a shop seeing stuff being nicked around you, and that's the world.
And we are all seeing that now.
Yeah.
That's the real worry, is that it doesn't matter where you go. We were just talking, we've got several anecdotes just between us. People at home will know they'll have gone in somewhere, whether it's their local store, whether it's Marks and Spencer's, whether it's a department store, and they will see people filling their pockets, filling their bags, and walking out. And I don't think we used to see it like that.
I live in a quiet little spot, and I've seen it twice now. Sainsbury's and the Co-op.
I won't
I've
have
seen
the
it.
bottle.
No, well, good.
Yeah, we're not promoting it.
Don't get tackled.
But you will end up paying for it. It is the law-abiding, honest people who end up paying for it. People think, oh, they're big corporations, they can afford it. It doesn't. That's not how it works. It's our pockets it hits, because prices will have to go up to accommodate this. And it's a lack of consequences. There's a big Kemi Badenoch has written a big essay about it in the Daily Mail today, saying it's not because young people don't have table tennis to play that they're doing this. It's because there are no consequences. Once you remove all consequences for something like a crime like shoplifting, then it will happen. You give people an inch.
Who's saying that? Kemi Badenoch?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because a lot of people would pour it back down.
Yeah.
I mean, Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, who stripped the police force right down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Afternoon, it's Christo in for Nana here on GB News. Later, we'll be asking a question. I don't know whether I want to know the answer to this, actually. Is life easier for good-looking people? I mean, obviously, I'm extremely qualified to answer, actually. What am I worried about? But why is that funny? Why is my panel laughing? Another great British debate now. Should 20-mile-per-hour zones be scrapped? The Conservatives have unveiled a national plan for drivers. They promise major changes to motoring rules across the UK if they end up back in government. That includes scrapping blanket 20-mile-per-hour zones, maintaining fuel duty cuts, reversing the 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel cars, among various other measures. They say they want to get Britain moving again. But is this all a good or a bad thing? And do you believe a word of it? Well, political commentator Aman Bogle, leader of the Climate Party, Ed Gemmell. Ed, I will start with you. Climate Party, I mean, that sounds like I will make you pay every penny that you own in order to drive a car that has petrol in it going forward would be your number one policy.
Oddly enough, the effect of this is actually the opposite of what she's intending. This is going to cost...
So Kemi Badenoch, you're
Kemi Badenoch, yes. This is actually going to cost the drivers in this country about 400 million a year.
Why?
And this is talking about the 20-mile-an-hour zones that exist already, rather than putting in new ones and all this sort of thing. Those that exist already, when you drive at 20 miles an hour, you actually save up to 35 to 40% of your petrol or diesel or energy costs.
I don't care, I'll pay.
Well, no, but that's fine. But in which case, if you're saying you'll pay, that's fine. You're saying that
cut fuel duty even more.
You want everybody to be paying £400 million extra during the year.
Cut fuel duty even more, then.
And 1 second, and we're in a cost-of-living crunch. We've got our fuel prices going up as well because of the Iran war. And Kemi Badenoch's coming in and saying, I don't care. I just want you to pay 400 million more. So I'm going to take away something you've got used to, something that's given you cleaner air, been better for your kids, and I'm going to make you pay 400 million quid extra for it.
We may be in a cost of living crunch, but I'm also in a I'm sick to death of the frustration of not being able to get anywhere crunch. And I'm afraid these 20-mile-an-hour limits, especially when you're driving, I don't know if you've ever done this, Aman, but when you're driving home at, the hours I work, 1 or 2 in the morning, and you are crawling along on a main road at that speed, when there's no other traffic, no pedestrians, nothing.
Well, this is a long-standing war on the motorists, isn't it? Come on. Are you seriously saying that reducing car speeds increases economic productivity, that it adds to the economy? Come on, let's be logical here.
Let him answer. Are you genuinely saying that we are better economically? Not about money being saved, but actually Britain moving, people being able to get places, that's better when we drive slower?
Well, I think the opposite is exactly the question I should be asking. Is it going to make any difference economically? It doesn't. In fact, most of the studies have shown that driving at 20 miles an hour...
So getting from point A to
doesn't actually make very much difference.
What's the point in having a 20-mile-an-hour limit?
You accelerate up to 30 and then you decelerate and you get there at the same time.
If it makes no difference, then why don't we change it back to 30?
Because it saves us a load of money and it's safer and it's nicer.
People can make the choice to drive at 20 if they want to, but the limit is 30.
Christo, very interesting. And I did try looking up in preparation for this and I couldn't find it, so I won't have the exact figures on this. But I was presented a report about this, actually, only a period ago, talking about 20-mile-an-hour zones and across all political parties and attitudes to it and this sort of thing. And it was interesting, as you went from left to right, how, in general, people on the left were more interested, and in general, on the right, they were less interested, until you went, would you like a 20-mile-an-hour zone outside your house? Oh, majority of everybody. Would you like a 20-mile zone outside your school? Everybody on your high street.
All right, enough, Aman.
Look, the truth is, the first 20-mile-per-hour zone in the UK came up back in 1991, and then it skyrocketed from around sort of 2013 onwards and further afield when Wales introduced a blanket approach.
That's because councils and national governments, I should say, all saw pound signs in their eyes.
Well, exactly. So this is nothing more than a money grab, be it ULEZ, be it 20-mile-per-hour zones, be it low traffic neighbourhoods, which are now, people, the government wants to go back on. Ultimately, with Kemi Badenoch trying to hijack this policy, that first of all, let's be honest, Reform announced this with a Welsh outlook. The bottom line here is you've got Kemi Badenoch running scared of Reform, you've got the Labour Party scared of running from Reform. It's literally the whole idea is what matters to most people. The Conservatives had 14 years in government to resonate with that, and what did we get?
Well, and that's a very fair point, but what I will say in answer to the points made, I actually completely understand, and I don't know why there can't be a compromise on this, where you say that any roads that are residential or around schools, side roads, I have no problem with them being 20, that's absolutely fair. But main roads, I mean, here in London, Park Lane, has gone from an 8-carriageway road to one lane for traffic on the northbound lane, and it's gone from being 40 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour. It is now continually congested, and it is painful to drive down. Why does a road like that need to be 20 miles per hour?
Horses for courses, I think we all agree. So whether we would agree on exactly the same roads and everything else, I agree with you, Christo, in terms of the general principle. It's got to be in the right places and it's got to have the right effect. And I think in terms of the right places, you're suggesting a place where perhaps it shouldn't be. You come to your high street, we are constantly, local councils, everybody, are trying to improve their high streets, and either having them pedestrianised and or with much lower traffic speed so that people feel safer and it's easier to get around in a high street, increases economic activity and helps those high streets.
OK, then I will put this to you. Are we just now becoming a society obsessed with safetyism? And actually, you know, everything is sold to us for our safety, other than telling people to stop throwing themselves under cars when they walk out looking at their phones.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, look, this is further infantilization of society. Like, these Luddites would have us back in a horse and cart if they could, because, well, OK, you know, it won't burn fossil fuels and it won't be travelling more than 5 miles an hour, and we probably have someone carrying a red flag in front of it walking. But the problem here is that the whole idea that you can trust people to do the right thing, and you can trust people to drive more slower in front of schools, in front of areas with little kids. And let's be honest, why can't you have traffic calming measures in front of schools rather than having a blanket ban of 20-mile-per-hour zones?
Well, that debate will continue, I'm quite sure, and it will probably go on for years. We'll all be driving in reverse soon. They'll say that that's safer. OK, coming up, we're going to be asking a different question. Are things easier for good-looking people? Looking across at my panel and at myself today, I don't know why any of us are qualified to answer that, but someone who probably could, because he's absolutely gorgeous, is Sophia Wensley. She's got some headlines for you.
Christo, thank you. Your headlines at 4:33. US President Donald Trump has cancelled envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner's trip to Pakistan for talks on the war with Iran. That's according to US media reports. Iran's foreign minister has already left the capital, Islamabad, after it was reported he wouldn't be holding any direct talks with the US. A woman in her 30s has been arrested after the deaths of 2 boys aged 1 and 3 in a house fire in Wolverhampton. Social media influencer Claudia Glam has died after she was hit by a car in central London on Sunday, the 19th of April. That's according to the Metropolitan Police. Former X Factor finalist turned influencer Gabrielle Carrington appeared in court this week and was charged with attempted murder. That will now be amended to murder, the force has confirmed. Britain's deal with France to stop Channel migrants making it to the UK is bad value for money. That's according to a top Belgian official. That's what they've told the Telegraph newspaper. It's after the UK signed a new £662 million deal with France to reduce crossings. Those are your headlines for now. Now it's back to Christo.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunny spells, continuing to be largely dry over the next 24 hours through the rest of the weekend, though generally a bit more cloud around, some weather fronts near the northwest of the UK giving a few splashes of rain, but generally high pressure holding on as we move through the rest of the weekend. Some showers across western parts of Scotland, thicker cloud across northern and eastern Scotland into the evening may just produce 1 or 2 spots of rain. But as we head overnight, it'll be largely dry, some low cloud and fog affecting eastern parts of the UK once more, perhaps not quite as thick as last night. Under the cloud, temperatures falling to around 4 or 5 degrees in places, but any clear spells in the countryside, a touch of frost is possible. So most, it'll be a bit of a mixed start to Sunday morning. The risk of some showery rain across parts of the Highlands and the Islands, but further south and east across Scotland, a dry start with some sunny spells, though some fog patches and low cloud in places too. A mixture of cloud and a few splashes of rain for Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England as well. A grey start across some eastern parts of England, foggy in places too. Elsewhere, some hazy spells of sunshine. And as we go through the day, I think overall the picture won't change too much. Low cloud across the east should burn back to the North Sea coast. And then there'll be hazy spells of sunshine for the vast majority. So it might not be quite as blue the sky out there on a Sunday compared to today. And further splashes of rain pushing eastwards across the northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures overall still well above average for the time of year for most of us, up to around 21 or 22 Celsius. Just still cool where we see some low cloud lingering. We'll also see those showers continuing to move through as we move into the evening on Sunday. And then high pressure looks like it generally stays in charge. Perhaps 1 or 2 showers around on Monday, but temperatures staying well above average.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Christo in for Nana here on GB News. And as I said, although I'm keeping the seat warm for the legend that is Nana, the queen that is Nana, and contractually I'm obliged to say that, don't worry, we will have apparently this quiz that takes place a little later, and it's by popular demand. I will be quiz master. Hopefully that will go okay. But first, do good-looking people not need great personalities? Now, I don't know if you've been watching I'm a Celeb. I haven't been watching it, but I've seen so much controversy around it, especially regarding the boxer David Haye. Now, he's come out of the jungle, and he's caused even more controversy when it comes to looks and personality and some of the comments he made. This is what he had to say when speaking to ITV's This Morning.
Ugly girls have better personalities than traditionally beautiful
David,
supermodels.
Do you understand why people are so offended by...
Because they want to get offended. Everyone's looking for something to be offended by.
I think...
So apparently this was something that he said in the jungle, which he's now doubled down on. Ugly girls have better personalities. Now, I would not word it quite like that, but does he have a point when it comes to looks versus personality? Do good-looking people not need great personalities? Do people who are less aesthetically pleasing have to work a little bit harder? Actually, Aman Bogle, Ed Gemmell, who on earth am I going to come to first when I say that? OK, I'll give my experience first. You know, I have been sort of morbidly obese in my life. I have been a bit slimmer. At times I've probably been a little bit better looking. At times I have looked like the back end of a bus. And I've always had to rely on having personality, a bit of personality. Some people would say I don't have much of a personality because I think that if you've been that person that has not immediately been considered good looking, you do sort of start relying on a sense of humour and things like that. And so isn't all the controversy around this actually David Haye stating the unsayable and actually stating what really is the truth, and that is that people who are not as good looking have to work a bit harder?
Look, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, first off.
Yes,
so,
true.
I mean, that, you know, so not everybody thinks the same person is good looking.
Very good point, and I think that's a fair thing to say.
And I think we all have a bucket of talents, don't we? And I think what we're probably more saying is that charisma or presentation, let's say, and to some extent people on TV or in politics or whatever it is, that's very much wrapped up with it. And good looks, oh, gosh, is it part of it? I don't know. I mean, I don't agree with the statement that good-looking people don't need great personalities or people who aren't good-looking do need them. I think that's ridiculous. It does remind me...
But it's easier for them.
Well,
if you're someone who is absolutely gorgeous, I think immediately, and I don't say this in a resentful way, but I think immediately the doors open to you because people want to be around you because you look better.
If I can give you just one example of a great lady who died relatively recently, so Dame Dame Jane Goodall.
Right.
It's a very famous anthropologist, and she was very famous for her work with chimpanzees and that, and showing how their society was very similar to our own. And I've interviewed her, an absolute pleasure to interview her. And she said to me, and she said in many other interviews on television and things, when she first came out with her studies, and particularly in a time when there weren't so many female scientists coming out with scientific studies and things, she openly said she thinks that one of the reasons she got so much attention is because she had good legs. Now, that comes from her. She says, I had nice legs, and so suddenly everybody on TV was interested in me because of that. And then she says, I don't care why I got the opportunity, but I then got the opportunity to present my scientific studies.
And that is a very fair point as well, actually, is that whatever asset you have, and whether that is looks or whatever, it might get you through the door, but you probably won't stay through that door unless you've got something else to offer. Right.
Well, indeed, Christo, but there's also a point to be made. I mean, it's an old saying, isn't there, that politics is showbiz for ugly people. And of course, we've got Starmer, Lammy and Rachel Reeves and Yvette Cooper. And
in fairness, we all talk about politics, so I don't think we can exclude ourselves.
Well, there you go. So at the end of the day, I think that would have excluded most of the cabinet from being in the positions of power and authority that they are. And I think this is far more about, well, I think luck has a lot to do with it at the end of the day.
But I think that also there was a very good point made there by you, Ed, and I'm amazed I'm saying that. I think I've said that twice now.
Yeah, gosh.
What would Nana say?
Making me question everything I've ever believed. But that actually, that you can be... that charisma is really important, and actually you can be a really, really handsome or beautiful person traditionally aesthetically, but actually be a very ugly person, or actually you can be someone who isn't traditionally good looking, but have some sort of charisma or drive or draw that means that people do find you attractive, but just in a different way.
Well, I mean, it sort of boils down to whether you're peddling optimism or pessimism, and certainly in public life, if you're out there peddling optimism and hope and all the rest of it in a charismatic way that chimes in with people, that resonates with what the average man and woman are going through in their daily lives, and they find sort of some solace in it, well, then of course that is going to give you a big leg up in terms of how successful you are in engaging.
Do you think that we are much more of a looks-based society now as well? That social media makes it much easier, again, that you can be an influencer just based on being good-looking now rather than being talented. And that, again, that adds weight to what David Hay's saying there, really, about you don't really need to work as hard when you are fabulous looking.
It worries me in a sense that you even brought it up into the issue and that, and it worries me with my kids. So, I mean, 17, 19-year-olds, looking at social media and that sort of thing, and some of the things I have to deal with when they come back to me, and their friends as well, about things they've seen on social media. And look, it's not just looks, it's presentation on social media, and it's everything in my life's brilliant. As well as I look great, everything in my life's brilliant, which of course it isn't, because we all have down times and bad times and that sort of thing, and that does worry me. I think there is something going on from Aman's point as well, and we're looking at the politicians and that, and in television and media. There is something else that comes after it in a charisma that without it you don't have longevity, and that is integrity. You can have all the charisma to present, as you say, the optimistic upside and all that sort of thing, but you must have integrity behind it in order to be solid, concrete, believable for people.
And Jordan, on your side, has just made a really brilliant point, actually, saying that look at Susan Boyle. We all made assumptions until we heard her voice. And actually, the fact that she didn't come out and wasn't a size 8, 6-foot model and sang, who you would expect to be good immediately, it was the fact that she wasn't that immediately made people drawn to her. And Elizabeth said, legs last but looks fade. I wish I had great legs. I always think of the Judge Judy quote, actually. What is it? Beauty fades, dumb is forever. And it is true. If you are relying on your looks, maybe ultimately you don't have it. It's not going to work for you long term.
Well, indeed, I think in this age of sort of TikTok and Instagram, I think this sort of superficial sort of fame of 15 minutes, it doesn't last. And I think most people who are not there for the right reasons, who do not have the integrity to back what they're saying and present, will eventually get found out. And I think the same thing is certainly true in democratic politics.
All right. Well, that's where we will leave it. I think we've all worked out that we are absolutely gorgeous and fully qualified to have that conversation. Yeah. All right. Coming up next, it's Nana's famous quiz. I'm looking forward to being at the helm for that one. But if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
A big talking point across southern Europe at the moment is just how warm it is for the time of year across parts of Portugal, Spain and France. We do have some showers affecting the Canary Islands, but it's the showers with that heat in Iberia that are turning heavy and thundery, starting to ease as we go through tomorrow and into next week. Dry for many parts around the central Med, with the showery rain affecting Greece at the moment, clearing away towards the east, and there's more fine, dry, warm weather to come for many as we go into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis. In the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News breakfast is there.
with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Yes, of course, it's Christo here on GB News. Thanks so much for your company. Now, it is time for the quick fire quiz, part of the show where the panel is tested on some of the stories hitting the headlines right now. So we've got Ed Gemmell from the Climate Party. Now, all you've done is talk about how badly you're going to do, but can we hear your buzzer?
Right, here we go.
OK, Aman Bogle. Thank you. All right. Question one, multiple choice. MPs and Lords at Westminster passed a bill to ban everyone born after 2008 from ever buying cigarettes. But what location is expected to be exempt from the ban? A, playgrounds, B, outside schools, C, outside hospitals. OK.
Outside hospitals.
And let's see whether that is...
I'll have to say outside schools, then.
I'm afraid that you are wrong, Ed. Again, you need to get it quicker, Ed.
Yep, sure.
OK, question 2. Open question. A group of Catholic nuns from Michigan have gone viral online. What for? All right, Ed, you were first.
I'll say criticising Donald Trump.
Criticising
Just a
Donald
guess.
Trump? No? Oh, well, I've just shown you the answer, so you're not getting that. So that was neither of you got that, I'm afraid. All right. Question number 3. Closest answer wins. How long ago was the Falklands War?
44 years.
45 years.
All right. It was 44 years. Ammon, you have won. That is 2. Oh, no, there's another question. Oh, you haven't won.
There you go.
Sorry, how many questions are there? There's 2 more questions. Gee, this goes on longer than the Saturday 5. OK, question number 4. True or false? 100,000 race gummers will ascend on the London Marathon tomorrow. OK, you go first there, Ed.
I'll say true.
OK, that is false. Only 59,000. Do you get a point for you don't get anything for that?
Oh, there you go.
OK, question number 5, multiple choice. Lewis Hamilton has been caught dating who? Adele, Meghan... Oh, before I've even said.
Kim Kardashian.
Well done, Ammon. Right. You are the winner. That is 3 points to your absolute 0, Ed. Not only is your climate nonsense...
for trying.
Against everything. Say a
Points for trying.
No, because of your climate nonsense. I'm afraid you get absolutely nothing. If you were against 20-mile-per-hour limits, you would have got a point.
We need to about oil and gas. I can win that one.
Thank you to you both. Really, really nice to have had you, Ammon and Ed Gemmell. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your company. Thank you for all your kind words. I'm back tomorrow, actually, at 3 p.m, where I will be keeping the seat warm once again for Nana. So thank you for that. Thanks for all of your kind comments today. Don't go anywhere, though, because coming up next, right here on GB News, it is the Saturday 5.
Oh, thank you very much, Christo. What a nice pleasure to see him in the driving seat. Look, we've got a cracker of a show for you tonight. We're talking about all the big topics. I'm going to be taking on Keir Starmer. It's time to go, but who will replace him? Lizzie's talking about the ungrateful French. Adam's talking about Shabana Mahmood. Will she go? Is Angela Rayner moving against her? And then plenty more. You know us. We'll have a lot of fun. It's the newsiest, naughtiest show on Saturday on the GB News after the weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Plenty of sunny spells, continuing to be largely dry over the next 24 hours through the rest of the weekend, though generally a bit more cloud around, some weather fronts near the northwest of the UK giving a few splashes of rain, but generally high pressure holding on as we move through the rest of the weekend. Some showers across western parts of Scotland, thicker cloud across northern and eastern Scotland into the evening may just produce 1 or 2 spots of rain. But as we head overnight, it'll be largely dry, some low cloud and fog affecting eastern parts of the UK once more, perhaps not quite as thick as last night. Under the cloud, temperatures falling to around 4 or 5 degrees in places, but any clear spells in the countryside, a touch of frost is possible. So most, it'll be a bit of a mixed start to Sunday morning. The risk of some showery rain across parts of the Highlands and the islands, but further south and east across Scotland, a dry start with some sunny spells, though some fog patches and low cloud in places too. A mixture of cloud and a few splashes of rain for Northern Ireland, perhaps Northern England as well. A grey start across some eastern parts of England, foggy in places too. Elsewhere, some hazy spells of sunshine. And as we go through the day, I think overall the picture won't change too much. Low cloud across the east should burn back to the North Sea coast. And then there'll be hazy spells of sunshine for the vast majority. So it might not be quite as blue the sky out there on a Sunday compared to today, and further splashes of rain pushing eastwards across northern parts of Scotland. Temperatures overall still well above average for the time of year for most of us, up to around 21 or 22 Celsius. Just still cool where we see some low cloud lingering. We'll also see those showers continuing to move through as we move into the evening on Sunday. And then high pressure looks like it generally stays in charge. Perhaps 1 or 2 showers around on Monday, but temperatures staying well above average.